Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And a very good morning to you. Welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Big thanks to Kevin O'Sullivan, standing in for the big man, MG, this morning. And whether you're listening on DAB Plus radio or on your smart speaker watching on YouTube or your connected device, very much appreciate you joining us. We have an awful lot to talk about. And don't forget, I'm here all the way till 1 o'clock. And if you miss anything on my show or you missed anything from last week, you can go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show, hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, but you can't guess what we're talking about. No, really? Yeah, billions of pounds of taxpayers' money has been wasted on asylum hotels because of a failed, chaotic and expensive system imposed by the Home Office. Who said that? Well, a committee of MPs, an all-party committee, the Home Affairs Select Committee. Ministers and officials neglected day-to-day management of their asylum accommodation providers, even as the cost of the 10-year contracts. It's almost like they didn't plan to sort this out, isn't it? 10-year contracts tripled from 4.5 billion quid to over 15 billion quid. Imagine what we could spend that on instead, eh? Of course, this comes as the government is facing mounting scrutiny of its handling of migrants after an Ethiopian man who arrived here illegally and within days sexually assaulted a teenage girl in Epping. He was mistakenly released on Friday. He didn't escape. He didn't just see an opportunity and run out of the prison. They let him go. He came back in repeatedly saying, I think I'm supposed to be deported. Where do I need to go? They gave him directions to the train station. I mean, genuinely terrifying. But after a 2-day manhunt, Hadush Kabati, whose initial attack triggered, of course, protests across Britain, was recaptured yesterday morning. And he's going to be sent back to his home country this week, we're told. Questions are being asked, so why can't we send everyone back that quickly, huh? I mean, what's taking so much time? Here's another thing. He got sentenced to a year behind bars, in September. He'd been held since the 8th of July. He's been in prison for 3.5 months. He got sentenced to a year. Why is he out in 3.5 months, eh? There's a question. Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary David Lammy will be grilled in the Commons later today about this. And an independent inquiry is going to look into what went wrong, other than pretty much everything. Meanwhile, Labour's flagship workers' rights bill risks crippling the jobs market. This is what the party's own favourite think tank has warned in a fresh challenge to Keir Starmer. The Resolution Foundation, whose former boss is one of the Keir Starmer's now closest aides, says it would oppose plans to give workers a right against unfair dismissal from day one in a new job. We're going to talk about that and plenty more besides. There is an awful lot to get through. I'm delighted, as always, on a Monday to be joined by commentator Sam Armstrong. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Where do we start?
Quite.
I mean,
it's all going swimmingly, Julia.
I know, it's all going terribly, terribly well. Well, you know, you always talk about the Monday morning announcement. There isn't room for a Monday morning announcement.
They've given up.
They're doing something about housing. No, you know, and it's a very important report about protecting people, but sorry, drowned out by everything else. Let's talk, first of all, to get back to Friday and what's happened over the weekend. This Epping sex attack migrant. He's going to be deported within days. So first of all, it was Tuesday. Now it's by Friday. Who knows? After being mistakenly freed from prison, sparking a frantic manhunt. I mean, you could just imagine the whole eggs on face that were going over on Friday, Saturday, early hours. Well, about 8 o'clock-ish on Sunday morning, he was found after being spotted by a member of the public. Apparently, it was his avocado bag, which anyone who goes to East London, you're basically required by law to get an avocado canvas bag. But this, looking at the timeline, I mean, this man. He was arrived in the country, you know, on like the 7th, you know, early in July. He was arrested on the 8th of July. And he'd been arrived beforehand. Within a few weeks, he had basically sexually assaulted a 14-year-old and a woman on the 7th of July. On the 8th of July, he was arrested, put on remand. 23rd of September, he was sentenced to a year. And 3.5 months later, he's freed from prison by accident. I mean, what on earth is going on?
Yeah, I mean, for starters, are we really saying that the penalty in this country for sexually assaulting two people, one of whom was a child, is you get sentenced in September, and last time I checked, it's still October, and you are out of prison already? Is that what the bar is now?
On remand. You've had the time on remand as well. I'm defending them. What am I doing?
July till October.
It's not a year. It's not a year.
It's not half. Why is it not half? Because Labour changed the law to release people even earlier than they were already.
To be fair, your lot, Tories left the place in a mess. But, you know, you accept that. A plague on all your houses. A plague on all your houses.
This law changed the rules to let him out after 40%.
Yeah.
So you get 4 months for sexually assaulting two people in one day, basically going on a sex-crazed rampage through an Essex town, and we are saying that the penalty for that is 4 months. Is it any wonder we have a grooming gang scandal when we set the punishments that bad? I mean, why wouldn't you take the chance if you were him?
Well, your chances are you won't be caught. Look, this is the thing: is this was such a high-profile case. What is extraordinary? I mean, perhaps you know, Hadish Kabati was not a name that we, you know, will perhaps it slips off the tongue. It's not like, you know, Axel Rudakabana. Oh, we all know that name. But you'd think someone might have gone into prison. Oh, by the way, you know, because actually, I think it's a couple of hundred people a year are accidentally released from prison. People go in and out of prison all the time. And you've got a lot of, you know, pretty low paid, very demoralised people who've often been in the job for only like a year or so who were in charge of doing that. And they've now instituted some more checks on that. But I mean, this is basically prison officer 101. Don't let out people who are not supposed to let out. The fact that he 5 times, and there was a lorry driver doing a delivery who's done a very, very long interview about, literally this guy was there for an hour and a half outside the prison going, I don't know where to go. I'm supposed to be being deported. Of course, he was quite happy to be deported. He wanted to go back to Ethiopia, but also he was going to be paid This is the bit that really gets me. We pay $2,000 to the people we deport, even the criminals. We pay $2,000 to them.
It's
really?
4 months, and you get paid $2,500 for sexually assaulting 2 girls. Now, what happened at that prison is so inexplicable. I can only attribute it to the Midas touch of our Justice Secretary David Lammy. Now,
even I am not going to blame David Lammy.
Remember, this is a man who went on Celebrity Mastermind and asked, name a blue cheese. He said Red Leicester. Which French Marie won the Nobel Prize? Antoinette. And best of all, which Henry came after Henry VII. Before Henry VII. Which Henry came before Henry VII? He says Henry VIII. I mean, this is not a man that is capable of running a service of the complexity and importance of the prison estate. So is it any wonder that this stuff happens? And by the way, somebody was released in remarkable circumstances from HMP Chelmsford, that same prison, part of the world that I'm from, just last year. He'd managed to fax in a fake release notice from the High Court, and HMP Chelmsford said, off you go. There you go.
I mean, this thing, it's obviously in chaos. There have been years and years of underfunding. It happened before the austerity years under Cameron and Oz, but it definitely happened during that time. A lot of people were shouting, going, you can't actually run justice on the cheap. You really can't. And we are living with here's my thing. I've got no time for David Lammy. I've got no time for this government. I don't think... God, I hate myself for this moment. I don't think they are personally responsible for this utter, abject incompetence. This is across the board. All the people who know about this stuff, former prison governors, Ian Atchison, people like that, friends of the show, pointing out like this could, you know, not only could this happen anywhere, this has happened and repeatedly happens, and it's going to continue to happen. So that's the reality. I'd love to ask you about this because I know this happened on Friday. He was only arrested yesterday, but basically this illegal migrant, he sexually assaults a 14-year-old girl and a woman as well who's trying to look after her in Epping, sparking those riots. He finally gets arrested, he gets convicted, he gets sentenced, and he only serves 3.5 months behind bars in total. He's going to be deported this week after he was mistakenly freed from prison on Friday. Imagine all the resources, all the police resources having to be used to deal with that weren't then dealing with, you know, shoplifting, your bike being stolen, your phone being stolen, and other sexual assaults. That's the reality. There is a cost to all these things. Just tell us your reaction. I'd love to know what you think about this. Try and keep it clean so we can keep it on air. 0344 499 1000. We all know what we're thinking, like beep, 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 beep. But 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs one standard network rate message. Let's also talk about this report from the Home Affairs Select Committee. It's very, 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 very damning. We are talking about, shocking mistakes dating back years to when deals were signed with operators to house asylum seekers in hotels. Basically, how much would you like to be paid to house asylum seekers? When it all went completely off the scale, lockdown and post-lockdown, and everyone started arriving on the boats, they basically, I think they trebled the actual cost of it all, and there we are. We end up with a huge number of people in hotels, costing us an absolute fortune. It's gone up to, was it 15 billion? It's going to keep on rising because we ain't deporting most of these people. But the key thing on this hotel thing, we're spending something like £145 on average a day on these largely young men of fighting age, when if they were in a bed sit somewhere, it would cost 23 quid a day apparently. But they've just carried on, kept them because they've got these contracts. We have a very big issue with officials in the government, whether it's MOD procurement for missiles or tanks or anything else, whether it's the Department of Health getting PPE in an emergency, or whether it's the Home Office finding accommodation for people who are illegally. These people can't negotiate for toffee. Is it used car salespeople must literally be going, ha ha, you work in the government? Brilliant, I'm doubling my prices.
Yeah, and look, in a sense, it's 46 million over the 15.3 billion we spend a year. It's 3%. It's packing peanuts, but it is, in a sense, emblematic of everything that is going wrong with this, which is it is entirely run by a lanyard class. And this is what I hate about these government contracts. The government came up with this wheeze in which they said, oh, you can only make up to 5% profit on this, and anything more than that you have to pay back to us. Do they heck? Every single piece of other, baseline costs in a business gets shoved into this. Yeah. These people run absolute rings around it. It then costs millions in order to work out how much money has gone which way or the rest of it. And there is nobody in the government on the procurement side, that we will have procurement managers listening along to this show today. They would be, if you're in the private sector, 10 times as good as they are in the public sector, because when you run a business, it's your money. The bottom line really matters. These people don't care, and if they did care, well, firstly, they wouldn't come up with these stupid contracts. They'd negotiate it down in the first place, and they would be getting houses from here, there, and everywhere, doing it cleverly. But secondly, it is emblematic of the fact that they have totally and utterly failed to shut down the need for these hotels.
Ta-da!
As they have repeatedly promised us. Yep. Every single Monday for the last 5 years, we've had some stupid press release from the Home Office announcing the latest wheeze to stop migration. And yet it continues. They say they're going to stop the boats. They didn't. They said they're going to smash the gangs. They didn't. It gets worse. It goes on because they don't care, because at the end of the day, it's not their money going to pay for it. Yeah. It's ours.
The funny thing is, I would be more careful with the public's money than even my own, because you'd feel a moral duty. But they just don't care. But I do have an issue. This hotel, I've got one, near the end of my road that's been taken up. So, if you've got family members to stay, we live in a flat, we can stay in you can't stay in that hotel anymore because it's actually not even open to the public. But don't worry, still paying for everything. I also don't want these people living in a local house of multiple occupancy. Apologies. I don't want them. Sorry. Oh dear. Trying not to sneeze. Oh dear. The latest cold's going around. I don't want them living, next door to me. Or next door to anybody. I think it's better that we know where they are. But I would like them to be in proper camps. I don't want them walking the streets. You're here illegally. We've established that. Actually came on a boat. You didn't produce a passport and a ticket showing you had a right to be here or a visa to be here. By definition, you need to be contained and not able to to work illegally or to sexually abuse anybody, or even just to, you know, to scam off the general public. You've got no right to be in this country. End of, full stop. Nothing to do, nothing else to say.
And you're right to raise these houses of multiple occupancy, because this is this government's plan. It's to move people from hotels into terraced streets in the north of England. Let me tell you, there are terraced streets in the north of England that you can go back to the pictures from VE Day. Look at the street, look at that community, look at the culture, the network of people, working people coming together to share their values, to share in a celebration. You can go back to that same street today and it is hollowed out from the inside.
Boarded up.
Nobody there has lived there for any time whatsoever. There is no community, there is no value. That was a British town that has been robbed from the British people by their own government, who have increasingly just turned these streets into, at times, totally dystopian scenes. Rubbish gathering everywhere.
But the point is this, again, you say the lanyard glasses in London, sending these people off over there where they don't live. That's crucially where they don't live. And then calling everybody racist who says, I don't really want a load of undocumented men who are in this country illegally living at the end of my street or by my kids' school, because look what happens again and again and again. And we are seeing, well, look, we've had a horrific murder. You know, a woman murdered with a screwdriver from the guy she was helping, who's an illegal. These are not all these one-off crimes. You know, the things that never happen keep on happening.
By the way, that bloke that murdered a woman...
don't even know his name, because it's just another story.
Indeed. I do know this, though. He murdered that woman in October last year. He had arrived on the 29th of July, the same day that Axel Rudukabana went to Southport and butchered 3 young girls. This country's state is so ineffective that day, the 29th of July 2024, is an emblem for everything that is going wrong from our country. An individual that had been reported to prevent repeatedly for his strange predilection, attraction to extremist violence, and his teachers were told, no, stop doing that, you're only saying it because you're racist. Meanwhile, somebody was breaking into our country, one of 255 men that day that broke into our country, and 3 months later he had murdered a woman and left her to bleed out on a cold railway platform alone. She had a kid at home. 29th of July last year, that was the day that our country changed.
Yeah, and it has, and it really, really has. And look, we know there's an awful lot of pressure on the Prime Minister at the moment. He lost the Caerphilly by-election. It was a massive, big vote, upswing for reform, but it was Plaid Cymru that benefited and won that by-election on Friday morning. We also had Lucy Powell, her victory after being the only cabinet minister sacked at the last reshuffle by the Prime Minister, winning that deputy leadership election with a sort of, a stonking, or is it 80-odd thousand votes. I mean, it was just so not a big endorsement for her. But we also had Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, talking about a growing sense of despair that the public has. He was talking specifically about the NHS, but I would say generally across the board. But Wes Streeting also in the news for comments he's made about Sarah Pochin. She's the Reform MP. She and I have had our run-ins. I mean, she doesn't know her bloody policy when it comes to two-child benefit cap. But on the weekend, on Friday, the Reform MP talk in an interview with my top colleague, Mr. Peter Cardwell. This is what she had to say. After a question, by the way, it was a question that she was asked, it needs to be pointed, by a listener about the overrepresentation, he was saying, of ethnic minority people in adverts and what Reform going to do about it. She said, "It drives me mad when I see adverts full of black people, full of Asian people, full of people who are anything other than white." Now that has been clipped by Labour as an attack ad, saying, basically racist, end of, racist. She then went on to say in that paragraph, "It doesn't reflect our society, and I feel that your average white family is not represented anymore in TV advertising." Now, she has apologised for her her remarks were phrased poorly, but she also says that adverts are representative of British society. But let's have a little watch and a listen of Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, on Laura Kunsberg's show on the BBC yesterday. Here's what he had to say about her remarks.
I think what she said was a disgrace. I think it was racist, and the deafening silence from her party leader says it all. Reform is a party who think that our flag only belongs to some of us who look like me, not all of us who have built this country, built its success.
Now, this has become a race row. Like, we need more of those. The thing is, she's quoting from, she's what she's saying is she's representing a Channel 4 study published earlier this month, which showed that there was an overrepresentation compared to the demographics of this country of people who are black or Asian. Elderly people, disabled people, interestingly, underrepresented. You'd think, elderly people, it's growing, you'd think more elderly people in adverts, they're the ones with the money, apparently, we're told. But while only 4% of the country, of England and Wales, the population is black, they are in something like 50% of ads. But also pointing out that South Asians, so people from the Indian subcontinent, 8% of the population, but in 17% of ads. East Asians, 1% of the population, in 11% of ads. So just pointing out that there is that difference. Is what she said a problem, or is how she said it a problem, Sam?
So I'm going to be annoyingly nuanced here.
But we should be nuanced when talking about these issues, shouldn't we?
Well, I think so. So the first thing is to say is basically, as a country, we have a choice. I've worked in politics for a long time, helping politicians prepare for interviews, amongst other things. You've got a choice, really. Either you can have politicians that give you a straight answer to a straight question, that just tell you what they think, or we can expect them to give perfect, polished answers to everything. Because the truth is, neither of those two things are sustainable. If you want politicians to tell the truth, they are going to express themselves clunkily, clumsily, badly at times. I have no doubt that what Sarah Pochin said there was poorly phrased, and it did not accurately characterise the point that she now says that she was trying to
Yusuf, the reform, whatever his job is this week, head of policy, or he was defending her yesterday, saying again the poor choice of language, as she has admitted herself, but he doesn't believe for a moment that she's racist. Trevor Phillips on Sky was going, who's black, and Zia Yusuf, who's an Asian Muslim man of heritage, saying, well, would she object to seeing the two of us on television right now?
But I would say this: Sarah Pochin has form for running off her mouth without putting brain in action first. I have seen her do it on policy announcements, as you say, on the two-child policy and other things. And I am concerned across the board. I like a lot of what Nigel Farage has got to say, but I am concerned that the people around him are at times not capable of thinking before they act, thinking before they speak, and it does matter. Now, having said that, I would rather politicians give straight answers
and address the elephants in the room.
To straight questions.
Just the fact that this was a Channel 4 study, this reason I think this caller would have asked about this, because it is a study, and it is something a lot of people talk about it. I have black friends who've talked about it, saying how they have said to me how ridiculous it is that it appears that sort of half the couples in adverts on television are mixed race, when I think it's very good that we have the highest rate of mixed rate marriage in the country, in the world, which I think says something about, again, I don't even think, I hate the word tolerant. We're not tolerant in this country. We are a welcoming, open country, and I believe that very strongly, that the vast majority of people in this country are not racist, okay, but they're concerned about culture, they're concerned about economic impact of people who are new arrivals. Those are completely separate things from caring two hoots about the colour of someone's skin. But even saying like that, the feeling is that BBC in particular, but adverts as well on other channels, it's all about sort of a social engineering and telling us what we should be, what we should want,
Julia,
as opposed to representing the country as it is. And we are a majority white country, and if I went to Nigeria, I wouldn't say, well, why aren't 50% of the people on television white? Is it about representation? Is it about social engineering? What is it?
I would go further than that. Sarah Pochin was clumsy. There are, however, people making decisions, casting directors, making decisions about the kinds of people that go into adverts who are racist. They are racist against white people. We live in a country that is, as you set out, the demographics are what they are. White actors white models, etc., must be. It follows like the day versus night that if they are dramatically being underrepresented in these things, they must be getting turned away for jobs for which they are well qualified. We would be told wherever there is an imbalance the other way, where we're told that there are too few women, for example, in politics, we're told that is because of sexism. The same must be true here, and there must be widespread, generalised racism going on.
Deliberately choosing. Again, I was raised, as I think most people of my generation were raised, that Martin Luther King, the colour was totally irrelevant. It was just totally irrelevant. And it wasn't something you should look at. I think we were getting there until a lot of the critical race theory. But it was really interesting because there's been a hit back about, and Sarah Brochin has pointed this out, the hypocrisy, that back in 2020, the Scottish Labour leader, Anna Sarwar, he basically did a speech complaining about how far too many officials in Scotland were white, and people can complain about too many white people, and then that's progressive, and people who complain about, as she did in a very candid way, about her view that there were too many black or Asian people on television compared to the demographics, and that is totally unacceptable. I would say both are unacceptable. And can everyone just stop being obsessed with the colour of people's skin?
Yes,
I mean,
please.
Which is what we used to not be obsessed. Well, I mean, look, there's no doubt at all. I think 70s years, but certainly I think in my lifetime it has changed hugely. But again, even down to I as a woman, I really object to things like women-only shortlist, the Labour Party. Well, they had to get rid of that because it was sexist, because it was discriminating unnecessarily. And I think once you've had a few women prime ministers, can we all get over it? First woman this, first woman that, I'm over it. And it's the same thing for me.
But remember this position, Julia, the position that you and I articulate and have at times been called racist for saying we should not care about the colour of people's skin, was the same position that Martin Luther King took in America. It's the same position that the civil rights movement, wherever it has been, where it has been legitimate and genuine, has always been calling for. And we have so lost sight of where we are as a society that we have managed to convince ourselves that being racist by actively preferring candidates on the basis of their colour of their skin. And by the way, there are a number of organisations that participate in schemes where they will only take black interns, for example, like explicitly banning white people from jobs. We have convinced ourselves that that is the non-racist position. Nothing could be further from
the British people are convinced by
nothing
that
could be further from the truth. We just need to get back to just not caring.
I think it's insulting to white people, but I also think it's insulting to black Asian people, the same way that positive discrimination for women is insulting to women. There was a time when you could perhaps justify either or both of those things. That time is long past, and I think just treating everybody as equals and holding everyone to the same standard is the way forward. But there we are. I just think the main thing, I like the advertising. I think there's a lot of social engineering going on. It's like the way when you do Google searches, what comes up, you're not getting a neutral representation. I think that is an issue. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, more crucially, on the illegal migrant who's going to be apparently he's going to be deported. Now he's been freed from prison, and then big manhunt, and now he's been caught. He wanted to be deported by all accounts, but why can't we deport everyone that quickly? And who do you blame for it all? Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Your call's up next. This is Talk.
It should never have happened in the first place, and the Justice Secretary and Home Secretary should apologise to the British people for allowing this man to be released. There should be a proper investigation into exactly what went wrong. This does also raise wider questions about the consequences of illegal immigration into the country. The first 9 months of this year have been the worst in history for illegal crossings of the Channel, and this man was, of course, one of those. And within just 8 days of arriving illegally by small boat, he sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl.
She's not a left-wing choice. She wasn't, from any of the left factions in the party. Lucy Powell, for those of us who remember the Corbyn days, was a real thorn in the side for Jeremy Corbyn. She hears the dissatisfaction in the base, and she hears what members are saying, and she wants to try and represent that as a deputy leader. I would think there's more about personal ambition in it for her than there is actually about trying to do the right thing or the moral thing or represent the members.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. Thank you very much indeed for your company. Let's go to your calls. Susan is on the line in North Yorkshire and wants to talk about, well, where we are on these illegal migrants. So good morning to you, Susan.
Hello.
Hello.
My thought was that... I'm sorry, I'm a bit nervous.
Oh, no, don't be nervous. It's only little old me.
My thought was, you're brought up with a moral compass.
Yeah.
Are you not? Between the age of 1 and 7, it pretty much drills into you, rape is not good. You will not rape your sisters. I
don't think anyone even knows the concept of rape at that age, thankfully, or unless, unfortunately, they've been the victim of it. But
exactly. And for people to come over here and not understand the concept of morality in the way that we see it.
We have had cases where judges have even stated, or defence barristers have stated, that their client, or the defender, didn't really understand that he couldn't touch 14-year-old girls or whatever.
They didn't know. Well, who the hell do we want in this country who doesn't know that raping a child, raping women...
Yeah. We've got enough of our own wrong-uns. We don't need to import any more, I'd say.
I used to work for domestic abuse.
Okay, yeah.
Institutions, and I will tell you what, it is a very disproportionate the amount of support that has to go towards, and I'm putting myself out on a limb here. I'll get some backlash from this, but I'm okay with it. You choose a hill to die on, so to speak. Mm-hmm. It was disproportionate the amount of people who are foreign born who came over here and
the victims.
Yeah.
And they were enduring it at the hands of partners, or...
Yeah.
Okay. And well, again, you've got to remember, domestic abuse, rape, until in my lifetime, it was legal for a man in this country to force a woman to have his wife to have sex, and you couldn't actually technically rape your wife. People used to turn a blind eye to domestic abuse, and luckily things changed, But again, if you have cultures where, unfortunately, large parts of the world, that isn't a crime, and, you're supposed to, you deal with your woman. That's the reality. Susan, I know you should never have to edit yourself, because if you're not talking in hateful terms, you're talking about your experience having worked in domestic abuse, seeing what you see. You never have to edit yourself on here, because you tell your truth. So, Susan, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I'm going to go to Stuart, who is in London. And now, Stuart, you've sparked quite a lot of news this weekend, I understand.
Yeah, I did, and
tell us how you did that.
I just want to get the record straight. I'm the guy that asked Sarah Poachin the question, and the question I asked, and I can't remember my exact words, but the question I asked is, what would reform do about underrepresentation and demonisation of white people, particularly white males, in advertising and general, public sector imagery? That was pretty much what I said. Yeah. I did not refer to ethnic minorities being overrepresented, nor nor object to them. In fact, because in my spare bedroom on his PlayStation is my biracial son, so that would be stupid and unacceptable, and that doesn't protect. And I think it's despicable of Wes Streeting to gaslight it that way. And I'd be very happy to speak to him or his people personally to put that straight. Whatever Sarah said is up to her. But that was the question, and I stand by that question.
I mean, I can certainly see it. It is a simple matter of fact. I mean, Channel 4, for goodness sake, did that study showing that white people are underrepresented in adverts. I want to know why that is. Like, what's the purpose of that? How did that happen? But certainly men, the demonisation, to apologise for the cough, the demonisation of men in adverts, they're too stupid, they can't be trusted to look after their kid, they don't know how to clean a kitchen, they're simple. I mean, men are treated as if they're idiots in adverts. It's demeaning.
Well, worse than that. I mean, and the reason why it's important is not just because about representation of community. Where I live in Birmingham, the adverts are representative, to be honest with you. But and I've got no problem with that. However, what it is, Julia, away from the media, away from politics, in the real world, art can imitate life. Yeah. And I know a number of people of my background, we feel as if we're not getting a fair break in the jobs market or the employment market now, quite frankly, because we're told we're privileged, we're incompetent, we're bullies. You go on diversity training courses, which I do, because I'm a contractor and I change work a lot. And the bullying boss is always a white guy.
Yeah.
And in those things. So, and life imitates art, and that's why I think it's so dangerous. And I'm not saying for 1 minute that we get rid of it. That's not what I was saying at all. And for Streeting to come out with that is a typical left-wing defence mechanism to twist it. And I'd be very happy to speak to him face to face, white face to white face, if I dare say it, and put him straight.
I can send him a video of this and see what he thinks. Stuart, I so appreciate you calling in again. It was a really interesting, as you say, nuanced question. I mean, it seems to me Sarah Poachin got herself into hot water by, just speak. We need to. It's important we speak honestly, but it's also important that we speak with care and due diligence about important issues when things are complicated, difficult subjects. And you've done it rather better than the politicians this week. Thank you very much for your call. 10:39 is the time. We're going to take a quick call. Then we're going to be talking to Karen McIver, who lives in Epping, where of course we had those protest spot after. Of course, we had the sexual assault of a 14-year-old girl by Hadush Kabati. We're going to talk to her about his release from prison by accident and his subsequent, we're told, going to happen this week, deportation. That's up next. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 10:42 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Sam Armstrong still with me. And let's go live now to Epping Forest, the branch secretary of Reform UK there, Karen McIver, who joins us to talk about none other than Hadish Kabati, all over the news for the last few days on account of how he was accidentally, mistakenly released from prison after just 3.5 months behind bars after assaulting a 14-year-old girl and a woman while he was an illegal migrant at the Bell Hotel in Epping, sparking, of course, protests. We've been covering those for many months, and now we're told back in custody and is going to be deported. Karen, I suppose just first of all, just what's your general reaction to what's happened?
Well, good morning. Thank you very much for having me on. Obviously, when the news broke about him being released by mistake, we was all horrified. And our thoughts, as always, are always with the family here.
Absolutely.
But now, since the news broke yesterday that he's been caught, I mean, obviously it's a huge relief that he has been caught. I don't understand why it has to take so long in this day and age of Big Brother when we're filmed everywhere we go, stations, everything. I don't understand why it took so long.
I mean, it was very much played out in the news, like, after this big manhunt and police and Justice Secretary being very praising the police. It took them 2.5 days.
Exactly. I mean, I think it's stupid. It should have been caught. If it was any of us doing anything wrong, we would have been caught straight away. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So obviously, I'm absolutely really relieved that he's been caught. I understand there's lots of other people like him that get released by mistake. Where are they? I understand there's over 260 that have been released. Where are they? Have they all been caught? It's good to see that he's being deported this week. Why aren't the others being deported? How come he can be deported so quickly? How about all the others? Can they be deported so quickly? Julia, what I will say, last night I was at the protest. I've been going every Thursday and Sunday.
Because they're still going on.
Yeah, and you know, last night there was a lot of new people coming out and supporting us. And what this is actually doing, people are trying to divide our community. Actually, it's really uniting us. We are standing strong together. We're all families, local families, and we're peacefully protesting, and we will continue to do it until the hotel closes, Julia. It's next to a secondary school. It's so inappropriate.
Well, I mean, it's already been proven. I mean, you're right. That everyone knows you're right. My only concern about closing these hotels, and I do want them closed, I've got one near me. My only concern is, where do they go then? Because unless they are either out of the country, in prison, or in some sort of detention camp where they can't walk the streets, we are talking about people being, living, you say right next to a secondary school. Oh, right, well, in that case, they'll just be living next to the girls or the boys, going to that secondary school in a house next door to them. And then we won't know where they were. I think the government wants them to be dispersed, same as the last Tory government did, because then we won't have a specific place to protest outside. And then they can just pretend it's all gone away.
They underestimate the British people. They think we're silly and we're just going to roll over and put up with it. We're not. We follow the law. We do everything right, and we bring our children up properly. We pay our taxes. We do everything as we're supposed to do. And so should they, and they're not, and they think they can just drop these people in our communities and we're not going to say anything. Well, actually, they're wrong, and they've got a big challenge on their hands, because I don't see it stopping anytime soon.
No, I don't at all. What do you make of this new report out from the Home Affairs Select Committee? It's an all-party committee, basically saying, the costs have trebled of hotels. They're doing these terrible deals lasting 10 years. Again, they clearly had no intention, either the Tories when they did this or Labour when they've got in, because they've been updating contracts, that this is going to be going away anytime soon, spending a fortune, allowing these companies to make huge profits, terrible negotiations, and we're stuck with the bill.
You know what? I'd like to see all of those contracts doged. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see where the money really goes. I'd like to see who knows who. How come this person got that contract and that person got that contract?
Who knows who?
Yeah, I just feel there's it's panic. It's reacting instead of planning. Panic reacting, and the good old British people have just got to foot the bill and put up with it. It's just so wrong on every level. It has been so wrong on every level for a long time. It's wrong under the Conservatives, and it's very, very wrong under Labour. We need radical change, Julia. Somebody has to say stop. We can't carry on. Britain is broken. We can all see that in our everyday lives.
Yep.
Whether it's affected in our purses, whether it's affected, you know, with our health. You know, doctors. All you hear all the time is people can't get doctor's appointments. People can't get. You know,
people are going abroad to go private, for goodness' sake.
It's ridiculous, and we work so hard as British people. We work so hard, and we're a really giving nation. You know, we help charities all over the world. You know, and right now we need to help ourselves, our own country, and we need to. It's like the aeroplane analogy. You know, you help yourself, then you can help everybody else. And right now we need to focus on ourselves, and we need to help ourselves. Our country is broken, and it really, really needs sorting out.
Yeah, and this is the thing. And again, when people they shout racist, bigot, you know, all these people, and you know, oh, someone's got a union flag or an England flag when they're outside at a protest. Oh, they must be awful. Quite okay for the new deputy leader of the Labour Party, Lucy Powell, to stand in front of 4 of our national flags. I made a jokey tweet saying, oh, look, Lucy Powell at a far-right rally, because that's what they think about anyone else with our national flag. But I think it's really interesting the way you guys and lots of the protesters on these pink protests say, look, this is about women, this is about mums and sisters and aunts and grandmas and daughters, saying we need to be safe, because at the end of the day, the brunt of the cost of illegal migrants, huge numbers of young undocumented men coming from far afield, largely from countries where their culture and their attitude towards women is vastly different from ours. The victims are women and girls.
Yeah, Julia, can you imagine if we take this back 2 years? Can you imagine if the Conservatives were in government at the moment, and the Conservatives have made this huge error? The Labour in opposition would be calling for all of their heads, all of them to resign. Yeah. You know, now let's see how they react. Let's see what happens to David Lammy. Let's see.
Should he resign?
Well, I think he should. It's under his watch, and he'd be calling for if there.
Oh, he would.
First, he'd be calling for it. You know, there's too much double standards going on. You know, it's like, do as I say, not do as I do. No, the British people see through all that. We're clever people. We see through it all.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that front. Karen McIver, she's the Epping Forest at Reform UK. Sam Armstrong, just very briefly, the idea that, you know, David Lammy is responsible for every single act of every single prison officer who signs paperwork to let someone out when they should be deported. In principle, yes, you are responsible for that. And David Lammy would absolutely have called for whoever's Justice Secretary, the Tories or any other party, to go if in this case. But I would have thought it was ridiculous then as well. There is a problem, but heads never seem to roll for this. But should it be David Lammy? Should he resign today? I mean, he's not going to. Should he resign? Should he be forced out?
No, I mean, look, David Lammy's the kind of person that is the reason why they have to put directions labels on a bottle of shampoo. But nevertheless, it's not entirely his fault. Now, however, Ian Aitchison, the former prison governor, said, look, what you have to do is you've got to get rid of the lanyard classes that are running prisons, make being a prison officer, governor, uniform job, a proper public service, a proper job again, and trust the guys on the front line.
Absolutely. 10:50 time. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk about our latest economic woes with the brilliant Liam Halligan. This is Talk.
He does want to be quite close to his daughters, who live relatively nearby in London and Oxfordshire. So.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 10:53 is the time. Let's go straight to Liam Halligan, economist and author of the brilliant Substack, When the Facts Change. Good morning to you, Liam.
Good to be with you, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get straight to it. The economy, not in a good state. All the polls show no one expects it to get in a good state anytime soon. But one of the biggest concerns today and over the weekend has been this workers' rights bill that the government is bringing in, Angela Rayner's big set piece, and how much this is going to damage, well, basically, weirdly, the chances of workers getting a job or keeping a job. Tell us what the problem is.
Well, we're both children of the 70s, Julia.
All right, don't shout about it.
We look pretty well for it, don't we? And we remember, because we grew up amidst it, really ghastly industrial relations, millions of jobs, days lost to strike action across the UK economy every single year, where really the trade unions held the government to ransom, leading to statements like, "Who runs Britain?" The 1979 election was, who runs Britain? Is it the government or is it the trade unions? We're not back there at the moment, but across the public sector, about 50% of workers plus are unionised, and about 25% across the economy as a whole. And Labour wants that increased. Labour wants to give a lot more power to trade unions. And with this employment rights bill, it's being dubbed the unemployment rights bill. It's about to finish its passage through Parliament. What's happening is an awful lot of rights, in additional rights, are being given to workers, to the extent that employer groups, mainstream business leaders are saying, look, this is just going to lead to massive unemployment. Unemployment's already gone up sharply since last July, since Labour took office. Their increase in employer national insurance, which I know you talk about with small business people all the time, has led to a fall in hiring. And if you have, unfair dismissal rights from day one, instead of the 2-year probation period, if you have rules that allow trade unions to come into your workplace, private sector companies, once a week at any time that they like, then all of that is going to put employers off. It's going to be bad for workers.
That's the thing. I understand people want to protect people, particularly the idea of people being exploited on zero-hours contracts, although most people are happy to work on zero-hours contracts. But certainly, a youngster I know who was on a zero-hours contract turned up for a shift. They ended up actually closing down the business for various reasons. They would have been covered by insurance, but everyone got paid for 2 hours instead of 7 hours, even though they turned up for their shift. And there's no legal right. We want to have reasonable rights for people to be treated fairly. But we've also all known people who've been hired who apparently do a very good interview and then turn out to be useless or a nutcase. I've certainly worked with a few of those over the years, and frankly, I'm not entirely sure I want them to have 100% the same rights as someone who's been there for a year or 2 years on day one. This is basic stuff. Is the issue that the Labour people pushing this, they've never actually run a business themselves.
You and I have discussed this a lot, Julia. There's no one at the top of government that has any genuine hands-on business experience, no one who's actually built a business, no one who's had to make payroll. They're generally sort of public sector princes and princesses that, the money just appears in their account because they turn up and go to meetings. But we know,
Zoom.
we know working from home makes you much more productive, all that time grazing from the fridge. Now, we know that the backbone of the British economy, where most of the growth is, where 2/3 of the employment is, where so much of the innovation is, our drive comes from our small and medium-sized enterprises. You have all kinds of small and medium-sized enterprises who don't tend to be run by political people. They tend to be run by pragmatic people. And
who can do maths.
Who can do maths, because if they don't get their maths right, they can't make their mortgage payments. They can't go to the supermarket and get their weekly shop. Very self-reliant people. And they are now warning loudly that if this bill goes through without the amendments that the Lords have put on it to strike a better balance, we want a balance between workers' rights and the ability of entrepreneurs and firms to hire people. Yep. Unless the balance is struck in a way that's better than what the unionised Labour leaders want it to be, then we are just going to end up with a lot more unemployment. Yeah. Unemployment rights will resemble, the country they'll resemble most if this bill goes through, Julia, is Spain, right? Spain, great place, many Spanish friends, love it. The trouble is Spain has got 10.5% unemployment and a chronic level of youth unemployment. Do we want that for our young people? Do we want that for our economy? What's progressive in that, Angela Rayner?
That's the sad thing. But what's interesting is some of the biggest critics of this now, not just business groups, but the Resolution Foundation, the left-wing think tank, used to be headed until the last election by Torsten Bell, who's now one of the Prime Minister's closest advisors. So we'll see. We've literally got about 30 seconds, but the mansion tax, it's not going to affect most of us. Most of us do not live in £2 million homes. But the idea of a 1% bill for every everything over the value over 2 million, a tax on the wealthy, that's not going to go down well with a lot of people, though, even people who don't have those homes themselves.
It's going to be extremely divisive. It's going to raise very little tax, actually. Yeah. The governor of the Bank of England, former governor of the Bank of England, Mervyn King, has just said, instead of trying to get, £500 million here, £500 million there, stop, Rachel Reeves, think about what you're doing and understand we're now at a point where the more tax you put on the economy, the less growth you're going to get. You're going to drive the economy off the cliff.
She's literally going in the wrong way. But again, also, who decides what price a home is worth? I mean, it could be worth something to one person. If you can't sell it for that price, who's going to value at that price? And how do they know? What if you've done a load of work on your home and it's increased in value? Well, what, they have a right to inspect your home? I mean, we are in some really dodgy territory there, aren't we? Liam Halligan, economist, thank you so much. Always so brilliant. Always, he understands it all. That's the important thing. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning to you. Welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense. Fast approaching 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. Doesn't the time fly by when you're having fun? Whether you're listening on DAB Plus radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, so appreciate you joining us. An awful lot more to talk about. Don't forget, if you miss anything from the show, you can go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking more about the government facing mounting scrutiny of its handling of migrants after an Ethiopian man who sexually assaulted a teenage girl in Epping was mistakenly released instead of being deported from prison on Friday. Hadush Kabati, whose initial attack triggered those protests across Britain, first of all outside the Bell Hotel in Epping, was recaptured on Sunday morning following a 2-day manhunt. We're told he's going to be sent back to his home country this week. And of course, the Justice Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy will be taking questions about this and facing a pretty tough grilling, I expect, in the Commons later today. This comes also as billions of pounds of taxpayers' money has been wasted on asylum hotels because of what the All-Party Home Affairs Select Committee in the Commons has called a failed, chaotic and expensive system, which has seen the cost of asylum accommodation go up from, wow, 4.5 billion to more than 15 billion quid. We're going to talk about that. Plus, the Met Police are set to reinvestigate 9,000 child sex abuse cases as part of a grooming gang probe. This despite the London Mayor Sadiq Khan being accused of stonewalling questions on the issue and denying there was a grooming gang problem in the city. Of course, it's just happening everywhere else, just miraculously not in our capital. Plus, Prince Andrew back in the news. Disgraced Prince Andrew and his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson have agreed to leave their 30-room home at Royal Lodge in Windsor. You know, the one they don't pay rent for or only pay their water, utility and other utility bills when they're asked. But they've demanded 2 homes in return. Andrew has demanded Frogmore Cottage, which of course was where Harry and Meghan were living first before Megxit. And Fergie is eyeing up Adelaide Cottage after William and Kate leave next month. Am I old-fashioned in thinking they got divorced? I'm not entirely sure why on earth Sarah Ferguson gets a free house, whoever's expense, but there we are. Some families are a bit strange, aren't they? We'll talk about all of that, lots more to discuss as well. And delighted to say commentator Sam Armstrong has agreed not to leave the studio. I mean, he keeps trying, but actually we just do the locks and he can't get out until 1 o'clock. And he joins us every Monday morning.
Good morning.
I mean, it is a good morning because there's an awful lot to talk about. My God, I mean, the news. Let's start again with Hadush Kabati, a man whose name I never wished I needed to know. I never needed to hear about him again after he was in the country for a matter of weeks before. On 7th of July, he sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl, and the woman who tried to stop him sexually assaulting the 14-year-old girl, saying, you know, well, I want to have your, you know, you can have my babies. Yeah, because that's a normal thing to say to a schoolgirl. I mean, I had a 14-year-old. I know what 14-year-olds look like. I mean, she was in her school uniform. There were clues, right? 8th of July, he was arrested. He was convicted and then sentenced on the 23rd of September to a year behind bars. 3.5 months after he was arrested and put on remand, so that would count towards his sentence. He was released on Friday, supposed to have been taken to a deportation centre to be sent back home to Ethiopia. Bye-bye, never want to see you again. But instead, he was freed. He hung around for about an hour and a half outside the prison, saying, I don't know where to go. And they eventually said, for God's sake, you know, the train station's over there. This is in Chelmsford. And he went off and he got himself a train, went to London. And then they went, oh, oops. 15 minutes later, he wasn't supposed to be released. And then they spent 2 days, a police manhunt looking for this man, eventually arrested in Finsbury Park in North London on Sunday morning. And now he is going to be deported. Meanwhile, David Lammy, the Justice Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister, is going to face a Commons grilling today over the wrongly released migrant sex offender. He's not the first. He won't be the last. More than 260, as one of our guests has pointed out earlier, people have been accidentally released. Very high profile, though, so you'd think they'd be a bit more careful. Who's to blame? whose head should roll, Sam?
I tell you who is not to blame, and the people who are not to blame are the mums in Epping who are representative of people across this country who are concerned. Why are they concerned? Because suddenly a group of men who have nothing in common other than the fact that they broke into this country illegally by paying dangerous criminals to smuggle them here have turned up within their local communities. Once there, they hang around outside, they mosey around public spaces, and they threaten and endanger the safety of people that were here legitimately to begin with. They were told it was racist to believe so, and then lo and behold, somebody that had just turned up in this country goes on what can only be described as a sex rampage.
I don't know. Okay, I mean,
hang on. He went up to one girl, 14 years old, sexually assaults her, goes up to, having been caught, done that, having been in an issue there, he goes and attempts to do it again. And if he had not been arrested,
I've no doubt at all
he would have continued going on and on and on, because everything we know about perpetrators of these kind of crimes is they very, very rarely stop at the beginning level.
I agree with you.
He was arrested, he was sent to prison for just 3.5 months. The public were told he was getting 12 months. Did he? No. 3.5 months later. And then what happens? He goes into Chelmsford Prison, a place I know well. I was born in Chelmsford.
I thought we were going to get a little bit of an inkling of what nerves happened in your life in the past, but there we are.
And then at the end of this 3.5 month sentence, which sounds to me like even less than 40% as far as my maths makes sense, that he is released despite the fact that he says to a prison officer repeatedly, you should deport me. The British state has just broken. It has completely and utterly ceased to function, and we have had enough of it. The public deserve far, far more than this.
I mean, the fact that he was saying, like, well, he actually apparently said, I'm supposed to be deported. And of course, he wanted to be deported because we're paying him £2,000 for that. He wants to go back to Ethiopia. I mean, I don't know, maybe our 14-year-olds just aren't his type anymore. I don't know. But the whole thing, it's so risible, but it's not unusual. And we say, prison governors said, look, no, this is not unusual. There's incompetence. We've had people sneaking out of prisons. We've had other cases. We know there is a problem in our prison service. There has been a massive underfunding. Basically, you can either be a prison officer and get punched and kicked and possibly stabbed or have boiling water thrown over you, or you can go and do another job that pays more per hour and not face that every day. Who would want to be a prison officer? Thank God some people do agree to do that job, because it's a rotten job these days, and it's very badly paid and people are very badly supported. But people are off on a mass scale. We have a problem there. But that doesn't excuse this abject incompetence, because it really is. You had one job. You had one job, not to release the man about to be deported.
I completely and utterly agree with you. Prison officers are by and large heroes, but they are led by, look, you can say they're underfunded, but every single prison, certainly HMPPS, the body that runs it at the top, finds enough money to staff an entire diversity department. How about we take all of the staff that are in the diversity or HR functions at the prison service and stick them onto checking whether or not we're releasing dangerous criminals? And who are they expected to be led by? David Lammy. Now, I made fun of him for the last time for getting just about every single answer wrong on Mastermind. I mean, Red Leicester being a blue cheese. Come on. And I don't mean any disrespect, but I am on principle against dumb people running big things. And the Justice Secretary...
David Lammy's a laughingstock to most people.
He is a total and utter laughingstock, and the standards he sets water themselves down into that. As far as I was concerned, last thing I heard of him, he was running a failing radio show. He's now his chief accomplishment as Foreign Secretary appeared to be getting into a dispute with a foreign taxi driver that the British public were going to end up having to pay the tab for.
He ain't covered himself in any glory.
And now he's turned up and he's Deputy Prime Minister.
People are calling for him to be sacked or him to resign, fall on his sword. The thing is, if we literally, I mean, you know, that's like saying the Health Secretary has to resign every time someone dies in a hospital corridor. The reality is our government ministers, whether it's the Health Service, whether it's the Home Office, whether it's the Justice Department, whether it's education, they're literally not in control. This, to me, is one of the biggest problems in the state, is that we have no accountability because we have no one who is in control of anything. The Home Secretary can't control whether the police do or do not arrest people for non-crime hate incidents, for goodness sake. The Home Health Secretary can't decide whether or not enough people are put on staff to mean that people don't die waiting to be seen by a doctor in A&E. The Education Secretary can't stop schools basically, completely and utterly lying to children about trans issues and things and pushing that agenda. The people who we elect, now whether we vote for them or not, they have a democratic mandate. The people we elect, the people who are in Parliament, the people who are then the majority party in government, have no control of anything. The civil servants are in charge, the teaching unions are in charge, the medical unions, the utterly incompetent, as you've said again and again, the lanyard classes who have proven themselves. Their whole thing is, by the way, we shouldn't have voted for Brexit because the people, we're not clever enough, we're not knowledgeable enough. Let the technocrats be in charge. Well, the technocrats have been in charge for about 20 or 30 years. How's that working for you, everybody? These people are ignorant, incompetent, arrogant, and absolutely out of control. They are the problem in this country because their abject failure to in any way accept reality and facts on every issue, whether it's from trans to illegal immigration or legal migration and the economic costs of that, and whether it's about healthcare, they simply do not deal in reality. And the rest of us living in the real world are paying the penalty.
But with all due respect to politicians, Julia, and everything you said is 110% correct. But with all due respect to the politicians, they might not have the power to do anything about it today, but boy, could they give themselves it.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the truth about politicians. They like not being in charge.
Oh, yes.
They like having civil servants doing it. They like talking about these terms like operational independence and proper process, because that means they have got an excuse come election time. Because the reality is, it ain't that complicated.
It really isn't, is it?
I am into policy, right? I like it, I obsess about it, and I try and explain it to people who have better things to do because they're trying to go out there and earn a living as to what's going on. And 99% of these problems aren't that complicated.
Yeah.
It's about first principles. And the problem is the principles of the people running this country are wrong. What do you need to do to solve migration? Sort out human rights.
Yeah.
What do you need to do to sort out crime? Deal with the dangerous criminals, lock them up first.
Oh no, and deal with low-level, zero tolerance, low-level
all
policing.
of this stuff is bread and butter basics, but politicians have deliberately given over vast swathes of their power to their mates in the lanyard class, who, by the way, many of them deservedly so, because they are responsible for earn far more than the politicians.
Oh, yeah.
And every time somebody tries to speak out about it, they are decried as goodness knows what. When ministers tried to do it in the last Conservative government, and I make no excuses for that, they were routinely, all of a sudden, another Home Secretary's got a bullying scandal against them.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, loads of leaks start turning up into certain newspapers from civil servants. There is a determined effort to manage this country into the gutter, and they won't stop until they get there. Do you think they know they're doing
it? Do you think they realise they're doing it?
I think...
Do they just, again, I know they don't live in the real world, but are they that and utterly separate from the rest of the society that we live in?
I have spent time around these people, and my honest view is they would rather that they were just comfortable, that life was easy,
their lives are good.
that things weren't controversial, and they are sitting there every day, and the only screen they're bothering to refresh is how big is my public sector gold-plated
But the key thing is, again,
now?
this is like the whole thing about getting people, like get asylum seekers, and they call them what they are, illegal migrants, out of hotels into houses of multiple occupancy, because then we won't notice them so much, they won't be anywhere to demonstrate against. Not solving the problem, not solving the actual issue of the people arriving in the country, or the cost of housing them, or the risk they pose to society. I mean, we are looking at, come on, the things that never happened that keep happening in terms of particularly the sexual assaults on young women and girls. But their solution to every problem, whatever the problem is stop talking about it. If we stop talking about it, it goes away. But it doesn't go away because people live with the... Same with the grooming gangs. Yep. Stop talking about it. Stop stirring things up, because then it didn't happen. Well, you can say that to the girl who is being raped at the age of 13 by a 50-year-old man. You can say that, but it's still happening to her. And that's a difficulty. I just find it's so... It's not just incompetence. It's not just not caring. it's immoral. But it's actually immoral what they're doing.
This generation of senior civil servants, political class, too many in the media,
the quangos,
all of these people,
you name it, everybody.
In a sense, they are only doing what the generation before them and the generation before that, those that were around 30 years ago, taught them how to do it. And it was fine. Do you know what? When you're Tony Blair and you decide to import a couple of million people from Poland, it doesn't really matter. When these problems started in the early 2000s, it was fine. You could get away with it because it wasn't affecting everyone, and where it was happening, there were pockets of issues and you could deal with that or ignore them. But you can't do that anymore because it's affected every single high street across the length and breadth of Britain. It's affected every single GP surgery. It's affected every single school, in which increasingly vast amounts of resources are going not to help our children read and write or add up or do their maths better, but to just teach basic English to a class full of people that are speaking 22 different languages. And now it's reached the stage where the British public, people talk about the British public having woken up to this. That's just not right. What has happened is actually it has now reached the stage where every single person in this country is facing in their daily lives the deleterious effects of 3 decades of mass migration and mismanagement.
And again, the British public haven't woken up to it. The British public have been aware of it. People aren't stupid. They can see what the changes and the impact on their local communities, indeed. And again, by the way, and it's British people who, black, white and Asian, by the way, is actually, if you look at, the people who are speaking up on this, again, it's become a race thing. It isn't it really isn't a race thing. Let me also talk about something else, because again, one of the reasons why, and I've talked about this, but what do you want? I'll bore you about all my stories a million times, of course I do. I did my local paper training in the East London Advertiser in Bethnal Green. You can just pretty much see my old patch across the river here. And we had a march that was planned by UKIP in Tower Hamlets, and that was banned by the police because basically it would make local people feel unsafe. It would provoke problems. A lot of people say, well, that's very interesting because actually people feeling unsafe, particularly Jewish people or someone like me who is very much pro-Israel, sorry for being pro the only democracy in the Middle East, silly me, why would I choose them out of all other countries? But we won't feel safe in central London when there's a march every 2 weeks. In fact, it feels like they're more often than that now. They're all the time, all these different marches by people shouting blatantly anti-Semitic things. But apparently the police can't ban those. No, apparently they can't, but they can ban a UKIP march. Now, I hold no candle for UKIP or their leadership or anything like that. However, instead, another march was allowed, and it was allowed to go ahead by the police, and this was a march that was, I'm sorry, the idea this wasn't intimidating to local people. Now, I know that area, Bethnal Green, huge Muslim Bangladeshi population. There were lots of Bangladeshi flags, there were Palestinian flags, but a large number, largely male, young men, largely masked, hooded men marching along, shouting slogans, not just pro-Palestine, but actually some really very unpleasant stuff as well. Huge number of them outside near Whitechapel Tube Station on Whitechapel Road in Bethnal Green. That was allowed to go ahead. They were largely dressed in black, hoods up, and demonstrating and basically saying, we're here, do one. Some of the slogans were, clearly, blatantly criminal in terms of what they were saying, blatantly racist against non-Muslims. Anti-Semitism, absolutely rife. There was a lot. We can show you some of the footage. Some of the things, saying out loud. Now, I'm of the view that I don't want people I don't care whether I agree with them or disagree with them. I don't want anyone wearing a mask on a protest. End of. Nothing to discuss. That should be non-negotiable. People are masked. Please go in. End of. This was certainly an intimidating march. Some of the footage was really very intimidating. That was allowed to go ahead by the police, but another march, which could well have sparked violence. Now, here's the thing. No one should react violently to any march of any sort. If you can't cope with people who have different views from you, it has to be peaceful, peacefully marching through your neighbourhood. Maybe you're the problem, not the people marching. Now, I'm of the view that UKIP wanted to march in Tower Hamlets, partly to provoke that reaction, I'm afraid, which is why I think the police were probably right to say, no, do it somewhere else, too provocative. But I don't know why they let this march, this protest go ahead if they were going to ban the UKIP one, because I would say this was also deeply provocative.
This was a hyper-militarised, and I say that genuinely, they all turn up wearing black, they all look exactly the same as far as I'm concerned.
But in the outfits.
They had coordinated those clothes. And by the way, we banned wearing political uniforms in this country on the streets during protests a long, long time ago, when black shirts walked through communities designed to stir up hate, which, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not saying everyone there was, but was the intent of a good number of people were saying the following, saying, Bethnal Green, Tower Hamlets, this is our place.
Yeah.
This is now, and I don't say that they speak for the Muslim community, but they were saying, as far as they're concerned, and I think they were Islamists, people that believe that society should be governed according to Islamic law, Sharia law, they were saying, this is our area, this is our neighbourhood. And
we're in charge.
We're in charge. And shamefully, our police stood by them. And by the way, Lutfur Rahman, the mayor of that area, is who was an individual that was banned from being mayor after massive allegations of vote fraud in the Bangladeshi community in particular, sought to enable them. Some of the comments he made out over the past few days are despicable, they're disgraceful. But look, here's the reality, Julia. We do not live in an integrated society.
Nope.
There is no multiculturalism. It is not. It just doesn't exist, right? Let's be clear. There are now Muslim areas in this country, there are now Jewish areas in this country, there are mixed areas in this country, and there are areas that are as yet untouched by these trends. But I'm almost getting to the stage now where I just think it would just be better if politicians acknowledged it. It would be better.
Stop pretending it's happening. Again, I was very aware of it from a long time ago because I was working on a local paper in an area that had been, East End, proper East End, had been white, and there'd been a large number of Jewish people there in that area, because we know that Cable Street, marches and things, and then had become, within a matter of, a handful of years, overwhelmingly Bangladeshi. And again, but we're talking about schools that had changed within, while your child had started in year 7, by the time your child left, after GCSEs, the school was a completely different makeup. Now, these are fast changes. No one asked if people were happy with that. And we're also crucially talking about people who arrived, again, from Bangladesh, a very poor country, women largely not speaking English, not able to communicate. So the community, the local community breaks down. There is a massive impact. But here's the thing. Would the police allow a group of white people standing in Whitechapel saying, this is ours,
well, no,
we're in control here?
Well,
exactly. But and that would be unacceptable, and we would agree that was unacceptable. So, and would we agree to any other racial group? Why is it acceptable for a group of Muslim, largely Bangladeshi youths, young men, masked and hooded, wearing black, I'm sorry, don't tell me you weren't deliberately trying to look intimidating.
Yeah, look, we have turned Bethnal Green and that area into basically Belfast. We've got to a stage now where we have, in Belfast, you have Catholic areas, Protestant areas, and you have to spend an awful lot of time managing people marching through different spaces.
And if you say it, then you're a racist. But when you discuss facts aren't racist. There is an issue here. But and again, we don't know how representative those people are of the local community who are just going about their daily lives. They took their kids to school. They living a normal life. But we have a problem with that kind of aggressive Islamist political ideology. And again, we need to be able to talk about it. You can't deal with it if you can't talk about it. And by the way, countries in the Middle East, and indeed actually, in Bangladesh and Pakistan as well, they are attempting to deal with it. Certainly in the Middle East, they are trying to get on top of this. We're just pretending. Heads, again, lanyard class, heads in the sand, not happening.
Oh, Julia, the best place in the world to be an extremist Islamist is the
Britain,
UK.
yeah.
It's certainly not in Saudi Arabia. It's certainly not in Dubai, for example. They know you have to get on this stuff as quickly as possible because it's a poisonous ideology that, frankly, only emerged in the last 100 years. Go look at old pictures of the Middle East.
Absolutely. There's so much more I want to talk about. We are going to talk about Prince Andrew in the next half hour. We'll come to that as well because I've literally got a list. My list of things I want to chat to you about. There are about 40 things on. It's always like that on a Monday. Anyway, more from Sam Armstrong. We're going to go over to you next. Give us a call 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get in touch on X @Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text text cost 1, standard network rate message. You want to talk about the Epping migrant, the madness there. You want to talk about Sarah Poachin. We were talking about her in the last hour as well. Lots of other stories. Get in touch, have your say. You get to decide what you want to talk about. This is Talk.
This is a catastrophe. This is a shambles. It's an excruciating embarrassment. And they're going, well, very good police operation. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. They got a phone call yesterday morning. 2 diligent, decent citizens. Hello, we've seen this guy's at a bus. Oh, thanks very much. They come down and arrest him. How about sacking Lammy? How about that?
Absolutely. This man, not only, as you say, Kev...
Did he blame the Tories?
Not only... Well, he did blame the Tories. He said this is years of failure by the Tories.
Oh,
not
for God's sake.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 11:30 is the time. Let's go straight to your calls. And Andrew's on the line in Hertfordshire and wants to talk about the Epping migrant who is once again having been caught by the police behind bars and about to be deported. Andrew, what do you want to say?
Yeah, in relation to the first of all, I hope you get better.
I'm fine. I've just got an annoying cough. Don't mind.
Yeah, you talked about why he was in prison for such a short period of time. Under the Bail Act, there's only 4 reasons you can't be given bail, and they are the serious of offence, commit further offences, interfere with witnesses, or you'll abscond. Yep. So the justice system decided some time ago that the time that you spend on bail in custody will go towards your sentence.
On remand. Yeah, he was on remand, so that's fine. No, of course, yeah, but he only served 3.5 months.
But that's not fine. That's not justice. The reason you don't get bail is because you're not entitled to it.
Yeah.
And that should be done. And then you start your sentence. That's why we have this absurd thing where victims see people having no sentence.
Because they've already served it behind bars. But I don't have an issue with that. My thing is, I think if you're sentenced to a year, you serve a year. I mean, I'll take maximum for very good behaviour, 10% off. Maximum. Yep. That's it.
No, but get it in perspective. The reason that you don't get bail is because of your behaviour or the offence.
Yeah, but you're still innocent until proven guilty. I think that's such an important principle. Here's the thing. Come back to the fact about he's now going to be deported. Is that problem solved then?
Oh, yeah, he should have gone straight at the centre. The judge should have just said, you're deported. You're found guilty, you're deported.
Oh, I want him to serve time. Unless he's going to be deported to serve time in a very nasty foreign jail, I want him in jail here.
Yeah, and that doesn't actually do anything at all, because we've just been through that. He just had to go. And the thing is, when he went into a police station, he got a lawyer. I bet he applies for asylum.
From all I've read, he wants to go home. I think he gets his 2K. Because, if you put you on a plane and you don't fight it, then we'll give you £2,000.
Yeah, well, that's what you think, but there's a lawyer out there that watches Channel 4 that wants to get him wants to get him on an asylum party.
Oh yeah. But this is the thing. There's quite a lot of people messaging in to point out. If we can get rid of him this quickly, why don't we get rid of all the others this quickly?
Because there's no political will to do it.
Yep.
At all.
Absolutely. You nailed it, Andrew. Thank you for that. Let's go to Mark. He's in Lincolnshire. Now, Mark, you want to talk about Sarah Pochin, one of the Reform UK MPs, and something she said on Peter Carboy's show on Friday when asked a question from a caller who actually called in this morning as well. He asked a question about sort of lack of representation of white people, particularly white men, in adverts and on television generally, and she's got in a lot of trouble for what she said.
Hi, morning, Julia.
Morning.
Yeah, I mean, basically, this whole story is just crazy. I mean, she should never have apologised. That's my thing.
Shouldn't she?
No, she shouldn't have done.
Why not?
There was nothing wrong in what she said. She was accurate in what she said. It might have come out wrong. The wording might.
Well, that's what she said. She apologised for the way she worded it. It drives me mad when I see adverts full of black people, full of Asian people, full of people who are anything other than white. Come on. That doesn't sound... No, the next paragraph, she explains what she's talking about, but she was silly, she was stupid to have used those words, wasn't she?
Look, as I say, Julia, she was sloppy. The wording was sloppy. However, you don't apologise to these people because all they will do, they will smell the blood. And did the attack stop? When she did that apology, did the attack stop, Julia? No, they didn't. Because they will just go on and on. Do I genuinely believe that people like Wes Streeton think she's a racist? No, I don't. I think he knows full well she's not racist.
Yeah.
They just use this as an attack. They did their attack advert, which is completely blows it out of proportion, just editing it the way they do. The only response she should have done was a response basically saying, my wording was a bit sloppy.
But
these are the facts. For example, 0.6% in this country of adverts, 0.6% feature pregnant women. Now, in a country with a birth rate of 1.4, you would think they would encourage pregnant women in adverts.
Here's my thing. I don't want adverts to be about sort of socially controlling how we think and how we behave. I just want them to sell me stuff I want to buy.
But these are the points she should have made. These are the points she should have made, Julia. She should have just been quite honest about it. Said, this is what the country think, because we all think this.
But she did say, she said, it doesn't reflect our society. I feel the average white family is not represented anymore in TV advertising. She made a lot of perfectly good points. But she has apologised for the language she used. She said it was phrased poorly, but maintained that many adverts today are unrepresentative of British society. So she apologised for the language, which I think was the right thing to do. I think it was more than sloppy. I think it's responsible for everybody to be careful about their language, but not to edit themselves and not say what needs to be said. But there are ways of saying things where it can't be taken out of context, and a better politician would have done that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can see your point, Julie. I really can. I just believe, from my position, you just do not apologise. You never, ever apologise. It doesn't matter what you've said. I mean,
Shouldn't you apologise if you've said something wrong? Like if you've said something factually wrong, or you've phrased something in a way that's... I mean, she should be apologising to Nigel Farage, shouldn't she? I mean, everyone says, why has he not spoken out yet? My guess is because he's hopping furious with her.
The thing is, right? You remember the comments Robert Jenrick made when he visited Handsworth in Birmingham? Did he double down on that? He did. He came back and he said, it's absolutely true what I said. They basically did the exact. They tried to do the exact.
But
same
he didn't.
thing
He didn't say. He didn't say that it drives him mad to see these people. He's just saying, look, we need to talk about the reality of how much our country has changed.
Then perhaps Reform don't want to be putting her out to go onto TV. Then do they? If she's that sloppy, if she's going to be that...
I think that may well end up being the case at this rate. I so appreciate your call, Mark. Really, really interesting to talk to you about that. Thank you very much indeed. That's Mark in Lincolnshire, Middock. 11:37 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be talking more about that sex attack migrant who's going to be deported. Also, the Metropolitan Police looking into investigations into 9,000 suspected grooming cases in London, even though the London Mayor doesn't think there's any of it in London, miraculously, completely immune to grooming gangs. We'll talk about that up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back to the show. 11:39 is the time. Let's go straight to my next guest. Chris Phillips. He's a former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office and he's a former Met Police Detective Chief Inspector. Morning to you, Chris.
Good morning, Julia.
Where do we start? We have quite a lot of stories to get through. Let's get straight to it. First up, we've got to talk about the madness of this sex offender, the Epping migrant. He's going to be deported. What do you make of this and the manhunt to find him? Because apparently everyone's been praising the police. Took them 2 days to find this guy, for goodness sake.
Yeah, I mean, listen, never underestimate the amount of cock-ups we have in our society, in policing, in prison services. These things happen on a regular basis. I mean, there will be hundreds of stories, similar stories. The fact that this man was so consequential, such a big issue in the country, it just goes to show just how slack things can be. And no matter what systems you put in place, as a senior manager in the police, I remember putting in sensible plans and then people just didn't follow them. And so these things do happen. The fact that he got caught is great. And
should
that
heads
he leaves
roll?
the country quickly.
And if so, whose? People are saying David Lammy, the Justice Secretary's head should roll.
Well, you know, it's very easy. I'm not a fan of David Lammy whatsoever, but it's pretty difficult to blame someone at the top end of the tree when such simple mistakes are made. And we've all been through it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am, because especially this isn't a one-off. And again, if the Home Secretary, the Justice Secretary has to resign every time someone is released accidentally from prison, that happened 260 times in the last year. It's gone up, not down under Labour, interestingly, though. Something's going wrong.
Yeah, well, let's be quite honest. The lack of funding into our services, such as policing, such as prisons, will have caused these problems. I remember the police having the Federation saying when Theresa May was going through these cuts, they will have consequences. People, bad things will happen, and you've got to accept it. Yeah. If you're going to cut the amount of spending on police stations, police and prisons, you're going to have these cock-ups happening from time to time.
And by all accounts, HMP Chelmsford, this has happened. There's been reports, investigation back in 2021 saying absolute chaotic management, hopeless. Most of the prison officers have only less than 2 years' experience in the job. I mean, you're talking about people who are just sort of flailing around. No wonder you see these mistakes. A bit of a wake-up call. Let's talk about the wake-up call on grooming gangs. We've still got this ongoing issue about a grooming gang inquiry set up over 4 months ago. It doesn't have a chair. It's lost a load of the young women who were victims of grooming gangs as young teenagers who've walked away. Calls for Jess Phillips to resign. What we've had all along from our London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, is not really happened here. When questioned by Susan Hall of the Tories at Greater London Assembly early in the year, he pretended sort of not to understand the question, not to know what she was talking about. I mean, he was incredibly dismissive of the whole issue, when it is highly unlikely that it's happened in 50-odd towns and cities around the country. But miraculously, there have not been grooming gangs in London. Nothing to see here. Now we know the Met Police is investigating 9,000 suspected grooming cases in the capital. What do you say about that?
Well, this is a microcosm of the politicians and senior police officers who have just repeatedly not want to get into this subject. They don't want to deal with the fact that we have got this going on in our cities. And it's taken years and years and several notable people to come out and shout about this for anything to be done. And I think it continues to happen. Sadiq Khan doesn't want to admit that this is going on in London. Of course it is. Absolutely. 100%. And it's been going on for many years. And the sooner we get to grips with this and lose this nonsense political correctness and just get on with dealing with policing and doing it properly, then we'll get to the bottom of these things.
It's quite bizarre, and again we've discussed this on the show so many times. Even on a previous radio station back in 2012 discussing this. It still blows my mind that anyone would try and cover this up and not try and stop it. I can't begin to get my head around that.
But this political correctness and I don't like the term wokeness because it doesn't really mean a great deal to me. What we've seen is people being scared to deal with the problems that we have in our cities. And they're scared to do it because they don't want to be called racist. They don't want to be called sexist. They don't want to be called all the ists that you can imagine. And so nothing happens, or certainly it's brushed under carpets. And we've got to get to the bottom of that and stop it. And deal with it properly.
Absolutely. Let's also talk about the police running scared. I mean, there's no doubt they're running scared of those pro-Palestinian demonstrations every 2 weeks across central London. And it certainly puts the fear of God into many Jewish people and other people who support Israel's right to exist. Seems to be fairly basic, that. And in terms of the intimidation and people being arrested by the police and stopped by the police for, the deliberate provocation of looking Jewish or wearing, the Star of David or the like. And yet, we saw in Tower Hamlets in the East End of London, as I can see, across the river outside the studio window right now, where we're talking about, UKIP wanted to hold a march in Tower Hamlets at the weekend. They were banned by the police from doing that. So we suddenly discovered that the police can ban a march that they believe would be intimidating or provocative. But they did allow another march to go ahead, which led to huge numbers of young masked Muslim Bangladeshi men, mostly wearing black, hooded, vast majority, I would say, from the pictures I've seen, wearing masks over their faces, and some pretty unpleasant chants, some very questionable flags, also pro-Palestinian flags, and the Bangladeshi flag. But no doubt at all, a highly intimidating atmosphere on the streets of the East End of London. The police just stood by and watched.
Yeah, and it's, there's nothing short of intimidation. And just to the fact of this mask wearing, I think we've got to get to grips with this and allowing it to happen, because they're doing it to hide their features so that they don't get arrested for
Well, one local businessman was on social media selling £5 balaclavas, he said, to Muslim brothers, saying no face, no case, meaning they can't identify you, they can't prosecute you.
Yeah, I mean, you can get around that, believe me, in policing. We've been doing that for years and taking face masks off people and photographing them as they come and go before they put the mask on. We've done that before. We have got to get to a situation where policing is respected again, and that will only come when we deal robustly with incidents like this. I lived through and I worked through the riots in Brixton, Toxteth and all those situations. Public order on the streets has always been an issue in the UK and across Europe, but we've got to be willing to deal with it and deal with it robustly.
Yeah, and certainly it doesn't feel like we're doing it right now. Meanwhile, the Met Police, we were talking about them, both those last two stories, have been spending huge sums on woke diversity programmes. I mean, just what we really want them to be doing. £5.2 million a year, Met Police, on woke diversity initiatives, and saying they've got a £250 million funding gap, but they're spending money on International Pronouns Day and Be Kind to Humankind Week and the National Tsunami Awareness Week. I mean, in their diversity calendar of 63 events. I mean, this is madness. Everything was in that sound.
Gee. I mean, listen, the police have been underfunded for many years, and this is causing huge amounts of problems. We all know that. We've got a mounted branch that's been reduced. We've got dog units, which are absolutely vital in policing the streets of London and elsewhere. Absolutely vital. And then you see wastages like this. And a simple senior officer should be able to say at a stroke of a pen, this is not happening, stop it straight away, get rid of it. It's, aside from anything else, aside from the waste of money, it looks awful. And it's not what we as police officers should be doing.
Absolutely. Nailed it there. Chris Phillips, their former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. A quick word from Sam Armstrong, who's still joining us in the studio on that.
It's not complicated. Please just go and everyone just do your jobs. Like how you were doing it 30 years ago. Just go back.
Why doesn't the government... I don't understand. The fact that Home Office can't say no more non-crime hate incidents, no more of this DI, literally stonewall out of, every government, stonewall out of the NHS, out of the schools, out of the...
I just don't want my house to get burgled and my car to get broken into.
It's too much to ask. Too much to ask. How dare you? 11:49 is the time. Up next, talking of houses, how many houses should a disgraced prince be entitled to? Because Prince Andrew reckons if he has to move out of Royal Lodge, he deserves 2 houses. I kid you not. We'll talk about that with the wonderful Rupert Bell up next. This is Talk.
left wing.
It's truly unbelievable that is a protest and a scene in the United Kingdom, frankly. Why the need to mask up and hide your identity, hide your faces? Is it because you've got something to hide, or is it because actually you want to appear intimidatory, threatening, and able to harass and frankly frighten anybody who might be watching or drifting by?
This is
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. 11:52 is the time. Let's talk royals. Well, last week it was dominated, wasn't it, about Prince Andrew? What didn't he know? Was he going to be losing his titles? Was he going to be ousted from his home? Well, it certainly looks like he is going to be leaving his 30-room mansion in Windsor, Royal Lodge, which apparently he's barely not paid any rent on in 20 years, and so he barely pays his water rates or anything like that at all. But apparently that's just completely normal. He and Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife, do think that's rather crucial, ex-wife, not entirely sure whether anyone's got a duty of care to her. They have agreed to move, but apparently they are demanding 2 homes for the price of 1. Let's talk to Rupert Bell about this, Talk's royal correspondent. Morning to you.
Good morning,
Good
Julia.
morning.
Oh, the problems with Prince Andrew. Yes, here we go. It beggars belief half the time. I mean, I always come on and I always enjoy talking to you about Meghan and Harry, particularly when I watch their videos. But I am certainly, when it comes to Andrew, I always think, well, is he going to do the right thing?
No, the answer is always no.
No, and I appreciate there he is living in his 30-room apartment, which he had since 2003, has a lease on it to 2007-8. By all accounts, he paid $1 million up front and also 7.5 million of his own money to renovate.
Where did he get that money from?
Well, his finances are subject, to speculation, but he said he could afford to live there. But since the latest revelations about his links with Jeffrey Epstein, obviously now he's given up the Duke of York, which now might be subject to a parliamentary review, but he still protests his innocence.
Yep.
And this is the problem, because in the court of public opinion, he is very much guilty. But to want 2 houses, and as you say, for Sarah Ferguson, it does, again, seem to be trying to push it and saying, well, I'm entitled to it.
Then it's always entitlement. Well, he's demanded Frogmore Cottage, which we know about because, of course, that's where Harry and Meghan lived before Megxit. Although, again, when the royals use the term lodge, because like Forest Lodge apparently is where the William and Kate are going to. I mean, what they mean is that these are big, huge mansions, and the cottages are huge, big houses as well. But Frogmore Cottage, and Fergie is looking at Adelaide Cottage, which is where William and Kate have been living. I mean, I just find it absolutely extraordinary. It's this idea, you just go, oh, hello, I'd just like to have a big house. Now, there is an issue with some of these houses. They're in the security of the Windsor estate. So there's difficulty of are these homes that could be rented out to you or me if we had the money, would that be safe? But there's the sense of entitlement is off the scale.
And this, I think, is what is totally frustrating members of the royal family. He has always had a sense of entitlement. He's always been convinced by his royalness, and to the detriment. And until he wakes up and smells the roses in whichever cottage he's living in, I'm afraid his troubles won't go away. No. And for the royal family, it must be totally frustrating. Last week, King goes to see the Pope, which was quite a symbolic act. But we got nothing about that. It's all about Andrew.
Come on.
This is...
I was on air thinking, I mean, goodness me, who wants to watch, hours and hours and hours of that ceremony, for goodness sake. I mean, look, but it wasn't on front page of the paper because it was all about, Prince Andrew. But you're right, there's no doubt. Here's the thing, though. Look, it's this idea that the King when he was the Prince of Wales and the Queen were totally and utterly oblivious to all the scandals that were about to erupt. I just don't believe that. It was very obvious to me that we all knew a lot of their stuff for a very long time. Did anyone think that Prince Andrew didn't lie every single word he said in that Newsnight interview? No. Everything's been exposed. This was a long time coming. And look, King Charles has been trying to get rid of his difficult younger brother for a very long time for many different reasons. But they should have seen this coming.
Well, they should have done. But also the problem was when the late Queen was alive, there were other issues at stake there. He was seen as the favoured son. So there was a lot of emotion. And that's why it was hard for the royal family to deal with it. And perhaps why the Queen was prepared to help front up that money that was paid to Virginia Giuffre when she was alive. And that was part of the problem. But now the problems seem to be exacerbating to the frustration of not only the King, but also the Prince of Wales now. And they just don't know what to do with him because it seems to get worse and worse.
Well, indeed. And you touched on it in your first answer, but Ed Davey, the Liberal Democrat leader, the Lib Dems say they're going to use when they get an Opposition Day motion in the Commons about him losing his titles. Now, he's going to stand down from not using, he's not using HRH for some years now, but not the dukedom and a load of other nonsense titles he's got. But he keeps Prince because he was born to a Queen. But I mean, I have to say, I think it's absolutely absurd that a minute of parliamentary time should be wasted on this. And if the Lib Dems think the biggest issue facing the country right now that they need to raise is what Prince Andrew calls himself on his headed notepaper or when he books a restaurant table, they're in cloud cuckoo land.
Yeah, and, I think it's something that's... I can't work out how many times it's actually been done that parliamentary time has been spared on members of the royal family. Obviously, back in the abdication in the late 30s, clearly there was some time going on there. But obviously, for Prince Andrew, he's just got to find a way of going away and going into hiding.
But he won't. He doesn't think he's done anything wrong. And here's the thing, the damage to the royal family is now very real because I always thought actually after the late Queen died that, King Charles wouldn't be as popular, but seems to be a lot of support, especially after his cancer diagnosis and the dignity he's shown since he's been in office. But there is no doubt there's the latest poll by Republic showing the support for the monarchy has now slipped below 50%.
And that's the issue for the royal family. And Prince Andrew is compounding the problem because it's always coming at you. And it looks like, they're, an entitled family sort of not above the law at times. And for Prince Andrew...
They are literally above the law. They're not required to pay income tax or and things like that. Or they don't pay inheritance tax. They are literally above the law.
And this is the problem for the royal family. They've got to make sure they're seen fit for purpose. And that's one of William's mantras, is that we do have to look as if we are, sharing some of the pain of the rest of the country. Clearly, they live in a gilded cage and they've got all the rich trappings. And Prince William, I believe, is moving into Forest Lodge this week. Yeah. So for the royal family, it's a problem that is just not going away.
It is not, absolutely not. Rupert Bell, you are going away now because we're going up to the news. Rupert Bell, thank you so much. I can't wait to get Sam Armstrong's thought about this up next. Also going to talk to Baroness Kate Hoey about where we are and all the other big stories of the day. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you very much indeed for your company. Very much appreciate you joining me, whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, or your connected device. It's great to have your company. If you've missed anything of the show, wow, you've missed a good one. It's always a good one when Sam Armstrong is here, obviously. Don't forget to go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking more about the absolute madness of that Epping migrant, the sex offender who absconded after 2-day manhunt after he was accidentally freed from prison. We told after he was arrested yesterday morning in London that he was going to be deported, but the Justice Secretary David Lammy is going to be facing a tough grilling in the House of Commons about that. This, of course, is a Home Affairs Select Committee report. All party MPs on that basically said that we're looking at a failed, chaotic and expensive system and huge amounts of money being wasted on asylum hotels. The bill for those 10-year contracts, those asylum hotels, has gone up from 4.5 billion to, wait for it, 15.3 billion. Your and my money. So when your taxes go up in a month's time, that's what is going on, folks. Plus, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, said it was racist for Reform MP Sarah Poitras to claim there are too many black and Asian people in adverts and not enough white people. The Reform MP sparked a backlash after saying on this show here at Talk, with an interview with Peter Cardwell, in response to a caller who called into the show this morning to have his say on this, after saying it drove her mad to see adverts full of black and Asian people. She's since said her comments were phrased poorly. She's apologised for any offence caused, but stands by the concern. We'll talk about that. Plus, extraordinary interview on the BBC yesterday with former US Vice President Kamala Harris, who says she may run again for the White House. This is the most delusional woman on the planet. She said she would possibly be president one day. I mean, good luck with that, love. It'll be fun to watch next time as well, but it ain't ever happening. I will absolutely guarantee you of that. But if you want to just completely destroy yourselves, Democrats, feel free to play. This would be the equivalent of Labour putting Ed Miliband in as an alternative leader after Keir Starmer fails, as he may well do after the local election. And again, not looking good for him after that Caerphilly by-election, where Reform saw their support massively going up, but even more so, we saw Plaid Cymru zoom to the top and take those Labour votes, and we saw the election of a first non-Labour MP for the town of Caerphilly. We're going to talk about all of that and plenty more besides with my next guest in a few moments, Baroness Kate Hoey, who's a former Labour MP, now an independent peer. First up though, let me introduce you properly to Mr Sam Armstrong, commentator who joins us for the day. Good morning to you. Good afternoon, sorry.
Good afternoon.
Asking people to get in touch. Got plenty more time for your calls in the next hour. Do get in touch about everything we're talking about. I've been particularly asking you about this illegal migrant who sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl, went to prison apparently for a year. 3.5 months later, he's out. Accidentally released, supposed to have been deported. He is going to be deported this week after being caught after a 2-day manhunt. I mean, thank God, as far as we know, he hasn't sexually assaulted anyone else. But we don't know, do we? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls the charge of the national rate. Text costs £1, standard network rate message. Sam, I didn't get a chance to bring you in on the latest Prince Andrew malarkey. Talked about that a lot last week. Yeah. I mean, the sense of entitlement. I mean, Mr. I want to live for free in a big, a 30-room house. It's not a house. It's not a lodge, mate. It's a mansion. Big house on the Windsor estate. Hasn't been paying rent on it. Did have to spend an outlay. But again, where is a man who's, as far as we're aware, has not been paid anything like these sums of money? Where is he getting all these millions from? To pay off Virginia Giuffre, a woman he'd never met, to pay apparently £10 million on the upkeep of this big house. He's not earned £10 million in his life. So, his pension from being in the military doesn't. I know he was a international envoy. There's some serious money floating around that man's lifestyle, and it's all unaccounted for. But he's going to face apparently humiliation at a Commons debate. The Lib Dem leader, Ed Davey, wants to have a debate effectively to use a next Opposition Day debate to basically consider officially removing his Duke of York title and discussing his homes. He says he wants 2 homes, him and Fergie, 2 different homes. The whole thing is mad. But should there be a debate and shouldn't Prince Andrew just slink off into the darkness and never be seen again?
Yeah, and Andrew needs to shut up and go away, and quite why he needs these great big houses. Are you going to be holding any more parties, are we?
What when Jeffrey Epstein wants to come and stay?
I mean, goodness me. I mean, Ed Davey's calling this debate because he wants to get on the 6 o'clock news. Let's be clear. The Lib Dems need to do something to remain relevant because goodness knows there's a lot of business in town at the moment for attention. But I do, Julia, I do take issue with your claim
here we go.
That the late Queen must have known. And I'm sorry, I won't accept it. I'm not having it. She didn't. And I'll tell you this. No. If somebody in your family says something didn't happen, it didn't happen, it really, really, really didn't happen, looks you in the eye and says that.
I'm sure she believed Andrew, but if she was in a situation, the same with the King, where they have senior staff who are told stuff by the police, if the police didn't pass it on, no, Andrew's over in New York staying with a convicted sex offender, this is going to go badly wrong. The police would have known. If they didn't flag that stuff, if they didn't flag that stuff, there's a problem if people feel they can't flag that stuff to you.
Well, look, I'll tell you what the Queen did do. She publicly humiliated her son by demanding that he gave up his HRA title and kicking him into the wilderness. Andrew's in the place he is because his own mother, who I actually believe will have believed him at the moment she did that,
because mothers
said, I'm going to put the institution and my country ahead of you and ahead of my love for you, and I'm not going to have it. The Queen did everything right.
She always put country ahead of everything else. She always did.
She said at the beginning of her reign that her whole life would be spent in duty, and so it was.
OK. All right, then. Well, leave it there. I mean, you're welcome to call in on this, but I think there are lots of other topics to talk about. Again, I would say that to Lib Dem leader Ed Davey. Seriously, there are other things to debate. Why are you wasting time on this? And then we've just wasted time on it. But there we are. Anyway, 9 minutes past 12. Let's go straight to Baroness Kate Hoey, independent peer and former Labour MP herself. Very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Julia.
I suppose, just really briefly, though, do you think there should be any parliamentary time wasted on what the Prince Andrew calls himself in his headed note paper?
Sorry, I didn't hear that, Julia.
Do you think there should be any parliamentary time wasted on what Prince Andrew calls himself on his headed note paper?
No, I don't. I genuinely think it's a waste of time because in the end, this is going to be sorted out between, the royal family, the Crown Estate, and presumably Prince Andrew. And I don't think Parliament can actually achieve anything other than all feeling like they're doing, aren't they? Patting their backs and saying how well they're doing.
Exactly. It's a bit of a talking shop, isn't it? Look, let's talk about the madness where we are with this Epping migrant. I mean, the story sort of defies belief. We get after the story. I remember I wrote my song column on Thursday, sort of tweeting it out in the Friday morning and going, "Are you kidding me? The story's been superseded." Writing about the one in, one out, and the guy who came back in again, the hokey cokey migrant who's now going to be deported again. And then we had the Epping sex attack migrant being deported in days now, we're told, after mistakenly being freed on Friday morning. 2-day manhunt by the police, finally being arrested. Hadush Kabatu, the Justice Secretary, David Lammy, is facing questions in the Commons today. What do you make of that whole case?
Well, I think it not only is I think the Home Secretary right when she says it about the Department of the Home Office is a bit of a shambles. I think she didn't quite use those words, but that's what she implied. I think probably the Ministry of Justice will be very much looking at their department and how it has handled. And clearly prison staff are under huge stress, and there's no doubt about it. The prisons are overcrowded, and there's been a tendency to try and get people out as quickly as possible, but I don't think anyone expected someone who had actually literally only been in jail a very short time, and was someone who had been found guilty of a terrible offence in terms of women and the fear that there was that he would have got out early. I found it rather interesting over the weekend that people were going on about this sort of manhunt and how wonderful it was in the end that the police got this guy. I may be totally wrong, but I kind of got the feeling that he didn't even know he was being hunted.
No.
Because he actually had tried to go back in again, as I understand it. And
5 times. He was there for an hour and a half.
Yeah, exactly. So, he was then a bit bewildered. Apparently he was told how to get to the railway station. got on a train, had a bit of money, obviously, but in the end, he didn't look ever in any of the film that we were seeing as if he was kind of desperately trying to hide. And
I mean, he's got his bag with avocados on. He's wandering into a library. He's getting on trains. I mean, for goodness sake, this is not a man trying to hide.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was probably quite relieved to be picked up in the end, and especially now it does seem as if hopefully he'll get deported as quickly as possible, and maybe he'll go back and actually make it clear when he goes back to his own country that it's actually not as easy as it all sounds to get over to.
Well, I mean, it was apparently, he paid, I think over the going rate last year, over $2,000 to get over. Apparently, it's down to $1,500 now. But I mean, apparently, we're paying him $2,000 to go, which is the bit that I find just so difficult to cope with. But this is an ongoing story, and he's not the only one. We've had another illegal migrant who's arrived in this country who has stabbed a woman to death with a screwdriver. I mean, absolutely horrific cases, and we've got numerous other cases that are coming to court of allegations, not yet proved, but allegations of similar sexual assaults and rape. This is not going away, and we know also the cost is still going up. And the extraordinary revelation in the Home Affairs Select Committee report, bearing in mind it's an all-party committee, this isn't just a Tory chair, but Tories attacking. They've said that the taxpayers' money has been wasted on asylum hotels because of a failed, chaotic and expensive system imposed by the Home Office. Yes, going back about 6 years, so covers Tory years as well. But they've seen the cost of 10-year contracts for accommodation tripling from £4.5 billion to over £15 billion of our taxpayers' money. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, it's obviously the last government is just as much to blame because it started all under them. But I'm afraid Labour hasn't done very much to try and sort it out. And, three big companies, companies have got huge amounts of profit out of this. And what seems even worse is that when they could have clawed back some money, they didn't actually do that. So there was not even possible to get the money back. And then the thing that really, really annoyed me was that there's 3 Chinese-owned hotels who have got huge amounts of money. And clearly, whatever they say about getting people out of the hotels by 2029, that's a long time away still. Happen. And in the meantime, we're footing the bill. And of course, the real issue is they shouldn't be here in the first place.
Well, that's the thing, is that, again, £145 a day for these people to be in these hotels. And most people have one in their local area. There's actually a website you can look up, and I know the one in my local area. And I've been to talk to people there. And again, very unfriendly greeting I got there. But it would be £23 a day if they were just in sort of, houses of multiple occupancy, sort of, bed sits or shared flats. But the thing is, we're paying for them. But either way, moving them out of hotels, which is what the government's desperate to do, so you don't have protests that continue. We've spoken to someone who's regularly at those protests at the Bell Hotel, where this man, Hadush Kabati, was living at the time of the sexual assault on the 14-year-old and on a woman as well, back in July. They want them closed because then there isn't somewhere for people to protest against. But they'll still be here and they'll be on our streets. Yeah. What most people say, either A, they don't come here, B, they got rid of on the next day, and C, if not, they are kept in camps, ex-military bases, wherever it is, but they're not on our streets and a risk to us.
Well, I think it's going to be very, very worrying if they're put into multi-occupied homes in different parts of the country, because that is actually going to lead to even more community anger when they see, people waiting for years to get decent homes can't get in because of people coming in who had no right to be here in the first place. I mean, they've got to be some kind of camps, but the idea that those camps then would be open for people to leave, I'm afraid we have to be a little bit tougher and actually make it clear that if they come here illegally, until they are eventually found to be illegal, and well, they're all illegal as they come in, but until they've gone through the asylum process, then they are not allowed to roam freely, and that is going to have to happen. But ultimately, we've got to stop the boats coming across, and I genuinely don't understand why this is not being treated now as an emergency, that actually we need to bring in the Royal Navy. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the Royal Navy would do and how it would work, but at very least it would show to people in France that we were taking it seriously and not going out and literally picking up people from these boats before they're even in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's the plan. And we're going to get bigger and bigger boats. We have fewer boats, but more and more people on them. We're going to have like 180 on some of these boats. I mean, these huge, big things. It's extraordinary. Let me also ask you about a bit of a race row that is going on involving Sarah Pochin, the Reform UK MP. She was on a phone-in with Peter Cobwell here on Talk last Friday, and a caller, Stuart, called in and asked her a question. And he was on the show just a little bit earlier. He called in to point out that he had actually asked about the underrepresentation, the demonisation of white people in adverts and on television, in particular of men. Now, in response, I'll read in full what Sarah Pochin said, because I think it's important to know the context. She said, "It drives me mad when I see adverts full of black people, full of Asian people, full of people who are anything other than white." She then said, "It doesn't reflect our society, and I feel that your average white family is not represented anymore in TV advertising." She talked about woke, arty-farty, in her words, ad executives for only portraying life inside the M25 and saying these are not representative of the rest of the country. Now, she has apologised after being accused of making racist remarks, saying it drives me mad when I see adverts of black and Asian people. She says the remarks were phrased poorly, but that many adverts are unrepresentative of British society. Now, here is what Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, had to say on the BBC yesterday about that.
I think what she said was a disgrace. I think it was racist, and the deafening silence from her party leader says it all. Reform is a party who think that our flag only belongs to some of us who look like me, not all of us who have built this country, built its success.
So, question to you, Baroness Kate Hoey. Was what she said racist? Was it a disgrace, or does she have a point?
Well, I think if she's at fault in at all, it's simply because she put it perhaps not as well as she could have, because I think all of us, and very, very many people, and I've had lots of discussions, just informal discussions with people about the fact that now it looks like everybody is kind of in a mixed race marriage on our adverts. I mean, there's no doubt about it. That has happened over the last few years. And no one has, I mean, obviously the advertising companies think that's going to be helpful to selling their products. I mean, clearly it isn't the reality of what marriages are, or people living together.
We have a very high-rated mixed-rate marriage in this country, but the idea that sort of half the people in this country in a mixed-race marriage is risible. It's silly. Yeah. It's simply not factually true.
So I think what she said is actually correct. I don't know why she apologised in the way she did. I think she should have perhaps apologised that she didn't put it very well.
I think that's what she said. Her remarks were phrased poorly, she says.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that really would have insulted anyone. And it was interesting to see a number of members of Reform who are from a black and Asian background speaking up in support of her. But, you know, this is just the automatic response now from the Labour Party to anything that's said that is kind of looking like it might be slightly going against the sort of their idea that, you know, the whole thing is all about diversity, and you never can actually stick up for anybody who isn't either black or from an Asian background.
I'd
probably now be criticised.
Probably they put out an attack ad, but they only used the first sentence. It drives me mad, etc. And that's the thing. A better politician would know how to talk around these things a bit more carefully. And people will say, people shouldn't
also, Julia, remember that
tiptoe, but you need to be careful.
Do you remember the Scottish leader who made the speech about white people? So only white people were
the judges,
in this, and white people.
Yeah, MPs, white. He was, it was very aggressive as well.
I don't remember Wes Streeting coming out and in any way criticising that as a Labour leader, elected Labour leader.
It's just been corrected, actually. It was Humza Yousaf who made that speech, but Anna Sarwar, also the Scottish Labour Party leader, also made the same point, complaining there were too many leading officials in Scotland who were white. I mean, so you know, two supposedly people on the left and two men, both of colour, talking about it and not being criticised by the mainstream, although there was a lot of criticism online. But there is a point, isn't there? I mean, for a start, Sarah Pochin was basically, hinted at later, there's a Channel 4 study published only earlier this month showing that 50% of adverts feature someone who is black, and yet 4% of England and Wales is black. 17% of ads feature someone South Asian, so meaning Indian subcontinent, but only 8% of the population is of that heritage, and 11% of ads feature someone East Asian, and only 1% of the population. And elderly and disabled people are the ones who are underrepresented. But should adverts perfectly correctly represent the country that we live in which case should 83% of people in adverts be white, or no? But should they also completely misrepresent the country ethnically?
Well, I mean, I think it's the companies themselves have obviously decided at a certain time. I think it came after all the bending the knee stuff that took place a few years ago. They felt that they had to show that they were inclusive and keen on diversity, but it actually, I mean, I'm not particularly influenced, I suppose, by adverts anyway.
No, I couldn't care less what colour the person is cleaning the kitchen, selling me a Mr. Muscle, or what. I just don't care.
But I think there should be a bit of common sense basically given by the companies, and there's no point in trying to project an image that's completely.
But why do you think they're doing it? Is it because they're trying to be all DI and socially progressive and all? We need to, we did tick boxes like you have, BBC saying we'll never have a panel that's just 4 white men. There has to be a woman on the panel, and oh, brilliant, patronise us, why don't you? And all women shortlists for Labour MPs and the like. And again, we saw the quality of some of those women who came through because they weren't fighting on an equal basis with the male candidates. I mean, is there an element where they're just trying to be right and progressive, or is it about social engineering and telling us this is good and this is bad?
I think it'd be very interesting to get onto your program, one of the leading advertising agencies, of how they deal. Of course, they tend to pick up what there's a sort of feeling in society, and there's no doubt about it that we're all being pushed into a tick box mentality about everything. You have to be so careful now that if you're doing anything at all, that you're ensuring that you're not looking like you're only appealing to one side of the community.
Although interestingly, you don't see that in Japan, in terms of the people they feature in their adverts, or in African countries or Caribbean countries, and it is quite bizarre that it's not considered to be controversial at all. But there we are. Let me ask you about politics, because you're an independent peer now, but you were a former Labour MP. Keir Starmer, we're told, is under a heck of a lot of pressure. His leadership, I mean, quite apart from the fact he's utterly incompetent and useless at everything he does, is the opposite of the Midas touch. But that Caerphilly by-election last Thursday result Friday morning, seeing Labour basically completely collapsing, as indeed did the Tory vote, and Plaid Cymru battling through to win by a stonking majority, but also Reform, I think, trebling their vote. We've also got Lucy Powell, not his preferred candidate. He sacked her as a cabinet minister, as leader of the Commons only a few months ago. She winning that, I mean, not an overwhelming victory, it has to be said, in the deputy leadership election over his favourite Bridget Phillipson. How much pressure do you think he's under?
Oh, I think enormous pressure now, and it's a question really of whether he will stay until the elections in May, which are likely to be pretty disastrous.
Oh, he'll hang on till
it seems
then,
that the public's got an attitude now of anybody but Labour. And of course, in each constituency, it will be vary depending on the circumstances and who's standing and so on. But I think that he doesn't seem to be able to react in any way to some of these setbacks in any different way. Yes. He just comes over as the same old Keir Starmer, and I'm afraid he's not making the public feel that there's a real leader in charge of the country. Absolutely. And that's why everything's going to the dogs, as they say.
Well,
if that's not a politically incorrect statement to
probably say. By now. Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, said there was a growing sense of despair among the public about the NHS, but I think you can safely say it's about pretty much every area of what we talked about on every single show. Baroness Kate Hoey, always good to get your thoughts on everything. Independent peer, former Labour MP, thank you very much. Sam Armstrong, just specifically, we talked about a lot of the other topics already, on the pressure on Keir Starmer, that tactical voting we saw at Caerphilly, that is very interesting. I mean, trying to get Labour out, or whether it's trying to people voting against the Tories, voting either Reform or Lib Dem, depending on where they are. We are going to see the growth of a lot of that. People have realised how these things can be, manipulated in it.
Yeah, and I tell you what will really help: electing a deputy leader that says the grooming gang scandal is a dog whistle.
This, of course, is
Lucy Powell over the weekend. Let me tell you, this is
our good friend Monty.
She is the least attractive candidate for that position conceivably possible. Keir Starmer sacked her 6 months ago, less than 6 months ago, for being totally hopeless at her job as leader of the House of Commons.
Oh no, wasn't it because they thought she'd been involved in this rebellion over welfare?
This is a prime minister that has
she wants to be the flag waver for the left.
Even his own party won't vote for the people that he wants them to. I mean, come on. He's
how damaging is it? I mean, locally, I think he certainly lives on to the local elections. If there is an absolute trouncing the local elections, there's going to come a point when there's going to be
Labour don't get rid of their leaders.
They don't, and it's very hard to.
Leaders. He's going to go on to the next election. Now, what I don't know is, are we going to end up with Polanski, this man that last time, the leader of the Greens, but last time anyone knew what he was doing, he was offering hypnotherapy that could make your boobs bigger.
Yeah. I never felt the need to go.
Is this man going to end up Prime Minister? And we say that as a joke, but
for the love of God.
His poll ratings are surging, Labour's are collapsing, and we might see these crazy deals after the next election.
Happy Monday. That is the thing. There's going to be a lot of deal. Maybe not before. There's going to be a lot of deal making afterwards. Coming up to 12:28, going to get your calls. Interesting. A lot of calls about Sarah poaching. We're going to talk to you about that and get your thoughts on air. Up next, this is Talk.
Catastrophe. This is the people on the gates of a prison, the doors of a prison, are not prison officers. They're subcontracted.
Well, they're called operational support grades. They wear a uniform, black and white, the same as prison officers. They're not trained to the same standard as prison officers. What they should have done is rang up their manager and said, look, we've got some guy here, keeps going on about being deported. What do we do with him?
Yeah, keeps going on about, I don't think you should be releasing me.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Welcome back to the show. 12:31 is the time. I'm going to get to some of your calls. Then we're going to be talking to Maggie Oliver, the brilliant, the wonderful Maggie Oliver, of course, the whistleblower on the Rochester grooming gang. As we know that the Met Police are now going to be investigating some 9,000 suspected grooming cases in London, where, according to the mayor, never happened. Not an issue. We'll talk to her about that. First up, let's get to your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Paul is on the line. He's in Southampton. And Paul, you want to talk about Sarah Pochen and what she had to say about adverts.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Julia. Yeah, I actually watched the interview and I watched the particular question, and she has nothing to apologise for. She was asked a question, and I answered exactly the question exactly the same way as Sarah did.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous, and Wes Street, and they drag him out and starts rattling up. They always bring things down to a base level. It wasn't racist. It's obvious. Sam was right. There's propaganda in our media. I mean, Goebbels would be astounded at how well it's being done.
I mean, it is. I mean, Douglas Murray, actually, in one of his books, he pointed out just things like when you go into Google and you Google certain things, and how in the Western world, but not anywhere else, it is completely and utterly skewed and is very... So they call it progressive. It's a complete misleading phrase, progressive way. But it seems to me it's not just advertising executives and companies going, oh, we can't have anyone all white. It's like those adverts for deodorants and body creams and things now, where we can't have a load of very attractive women with bodies that women want and men also desire. We have to have a load of, let's face it, fat ugly birds in the adverts. I'm not claiming to be a size 10 beauty. I don't want to see those birds on the telly either. I mean, but this is the thing. Again, that'll be unacceptable. But the advertising world has changed, and we know that the public are unhappy about it. And it does make a mockery when you have, largely, let's face it, mathematically, undemographically accurate representations of our country. Should we put it that way?
Yeah, it's complete propaganda that all the lefties and the woke, they want this ideology. They keep saying, oh, diversity built this country. No, it didn't.
No, it's just
Great
nonsense.
Britain's been great for 250 odd years. We were number one, and we did it all without the black man and the brown man. It was a white construct.
Well, I know. I mean, look, we know in the world wars, we know that people from colonies, people who have black and brown skin, fought and died for the British Empire, and we need to stress that. But it's this idea that this country again, we've been built on immigration. No, I mean, statistically, that is simply not the case. We're talking about a country which, until only a few decades ago, had unbelievably low levels of immigration. I mean, in the below 10,000 people a year net migration. I mean, so the idea that, it's just a nonsense. And people, the Windrush arrivals, they came to, I'm very welcome to, came to this country to make a better life for themselves and their families, as they're entitled to do. But they didn't come to build Britain in the same way that, my grandfather didn't my grandfather who's from Ireland didn't come to build Britain. He came from Ireland. He came to make a better life for himself.
Yeah, that's the propaganda. I mean, and if you look at the adverts, they suddenly went to a majority black actors after George Floyd died.
It was definitely a 2020 thing, wasn't it? Do you, I'm going to guess you're a white man from what you've been saying. But do you think, because one of the points that Stuart, who asked Sarah Pochen the question, one of the points he made was that the demeaning of white, it's not an anti-black or Asian thing. He was saying anti-minority thing. It was the fact that white people are being sort of constantly criticised, but particularly white men, and the idea that, again, if I notice it as a woman, who's, married to I'm married to a man, I've got brothers and fathers. I find it demeaning to men that men are always treated like they're, frankly, sodding idiots in adverts. I can't possibly be left looking after my baby, or I can't possibly clean the kitchen floor. I'm an idiot.
Yeah, but a lot of that was, if you look at the way it's gone, it was feminine kicked in, the feminists kicked in, and then white men were made to look stupid. And then when George Floyd got accidentally killed...
no, he wasn't. He was murdered. You lean on someone's neck for how many minutes it was, they die. He was murdered.
Yeah, well, anyway, horses and courses.
I'm not saying he's a great loss to the world, given his history of violence.
Well, career criminal, he got what he most...
No, he was murdered.
At the end. Well, he got what... Anyway, but going back to that, after he died, then all of a sudden, every white woman, according to the TV adverts, is married to a black man. And you think, well, what the hell's going on? And other channels have noticed it, but they don't say a lot about it. And it's so obvious. Yeah. And that guy that asked the question and he told you today, he said, where have the white men gone that constructed this society?
Yeah, again, these are fair conversations. These are fair conversations. Look, I feel terrible. John, I know, is waiting on the line. I'm going to try and get to you before the next, or the top of the hour, I promise. We've got to take a quick break now. That call went longer than I feared, expected. Maggie Oliver up next, talking about why we do need to have an investigation into grooming gangs in the capital. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. 12:39 is the time. Let's talk to Maggie Oliver, former detective constable, of course, with Greater Manchester Police. She left to become a whistleblower on the Rochdale grooming gang scandal, and she joins us. I'm going to say this sadly, Maggie, sadly, she joins us once again, because once again, we have to talk about what is going on with the failure to investigate grooming gangs. But thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure, Julia.
I mean, look, we still haven't got any resolution to this grooming gangs inquiry, the national public inquiry. Do you know where we are with that? Because, of course, you have been very much involved, many of the victims, and brought them in to meet a number of the representative victims of grooming gangs to meet with Baroness Casey when she did that rapid review and went, right, we do need a national public inquiry. But last time we left it, people were calling for the safeguarding minister, Jess Phillips, to resign. We've had some people supporting her, some people saying she's got to go, we won't come back. Where are we?
I don't think anybody really knows, Julia. There is no communication. Since Baroness Casey published her review in June, I have been, or my team have been offering to engage with the inquiry, and we haven't had any official conversations. What is happening behind the scenes is that survivors from different kinds of abuse have been, I think, exploited to tear each other to pieces. I think that really what is going on here, Julia, is that the government are playing a very cynical game. My own personal opinion is that they wanted this inquiry to fall apart, that they don't want it to go ahead, and they want to be able to blame the survivors themselves for having derailed it. And I'm not making that up. That is coming from survivors who have resigned.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in contact with
the girl who's the lady's calling herself Elizabeth Harper, I believe not her real name. She has she has openly said that. And you believe that? I mean, do they think they're going to get away with that? Do they think the British public are going to go, oh, well, fair enough, we'll move on?
Well, you know what, Julia? You know, you and I've been on this road for 20 years, the last 13 speaking out repeatedly. And what's happened over those years is that we get a spotlight on this subject for a limited period of time, then it fades away and it dies a death and it goes away. I think that they thought that would happen this time. But thanks to survivors like Elizabeth, like Fiona, like Eliane, like Jade, you know, they are coming out of their hiding places now and they're owning their experience and they are saying we are not being silenced again. And I think that this time the government have Jess Phillips, or it's not just Jess Phillips though, this is she is the spokesperson of the government, but she is not the only one who is making a hash of this. But for me, this isn't a mistake, Julia. It's a very deliberate attempt to derail it, to say, look, the survivors can't be trusted. But, you know, there's a lot of dirty tricks going on behind the scenes, you know, people being paid.
What?
You know,
what do you mean?
Yeah, there is a lot going on.
Who's being paid and by whom?
I'd rather
without getting us into horrible legal trouble.
Yeah, I'm not going to get you into a mess, but I do know that survivors are being paid to go on the panel. They're being selected, I would say, by questionable means. What I would say, Julia, is that, you know, I'm talking about grooming gangs here, but in my charity, the Maggie Oliver Foundation, we help survivors of sexual abuse from all walks of life and all kinds of abuse. And what I would say is that victims of sexual abuse in general get a really poor deal from the criminal justice system. That is every survivor. So I am not saying that all survivors haven't been failed by the police, by social services. Children in care are not cared for. They're abandoned. They're neglected. What I'm saying is that you can't conflate all kinds of abuse into one inquiry that is meant to be around grooming gangs.
And the crucial thing about this inquiry is not looking necessarily into what happened to the girls. That's actually a matter for the criminal courts. They need to get on with more of that. It's about the failure of authorities, whether it was social care, whether it was police, whether it was local councils, to do anything about it, to turn a blind eye, to even actually cover it up, because they wanted to be right on and PC and they thought it would create community tensions, they claimed. That is the double scandal. Yeah, it's a different scandal.
This is different. It's a different problem, and you can't solve the way that every victim is being treated in this country under the same umbrella. But what we need, if this is about grooming gangs, and that is what Baroness Casey promised, we need to look at ethnicity. We need to be laser focused in this kind of crime. And you know, I worked in the police for 16 years. This is 30 years of my life. And even though I've dealt with many cases of sexual abuse and rape from all different directions, I never saw another pattern of abuse that had been buried and lied about and covered up in the way
that's where the fact these were majority Muslim Pakistani men is crucial, because if they hadn't been, then they would have been tackled. That is why it comes into it. Let me ask you about London, because Sadiq Khan, frankly, an extraordinary question and answer session with Susan Hall, the leader of the Conservative group on the Greater London, or the London Assembly. He had basically sort of pretended he didn't understand the question. He'd basically, I mean, it's just absolutely, absurd, frankly. I mean, frankly, arrogant and rude. And he's basically pretended there isn't a problem of grooming gangs in the capital. Given that it's been identified as a problem in some 50 different towns and cities around the country, it'd be quite bizarre if London was strangely immune to it. But the Metropolitan Police now are saying they're going to reinvestigate 9,000 child sex abuse cases as part of a grooming gangs probe, despite Sadiq Khan basically stonewalling questions on the issue. What do you make of this? Do you welcome this?
I think it's a ridiculous statement. 9,000 cases. Think about it. Where are they going to get the officers to investigate 9,000 cases? I've been involved in Operation Augusta since 2005. And in 2019 actually, GMP were forced to reopen that case they've recalled it Operation Green Jacket. There were 70 odd. It's into grooming gangs operating in and around Manchester. Over 3 dozen children. It turned out there was over 70. We're 6 years in, and there were 70 cases, not 9,000, and we still haven't seen any charges. So if it wasn't such a serious subject, it would be laughable, because there is not a cat in hell's chance that they can reinvestigate 9,000 cases. The worrying thing for me, Julia, is that now, after the Express expose and the work that they've done, we finally have the Met acknowledging that they have a problem with grooming gangs.
And how did they not know that before?
They did know it.
Exactly.
I mean, the Express have only been able to look at the cases that are in the public arena, not all the ones that are hidden. So we are gradually seeing the house of cards fall down. But, we shouldn't have to be fighting tooth and nail to get the truth. Public police are public servants. They are here to protect the public.
And if you're not investigating girls being gang raped by anyone, you're not doing your job.
Yeah, I agree with you, Julia. And, it's like pulling teeth. But I don't think this is going to go away now.
No, we're not going to let it. You're also not going to let it. And there's amazing women, those survivors. They sometimes call themselves survivors, some victims. They're not going to let it. And all credit to them, or we'll be standing by them. Maggie Oliver, always grateful to have you on the show. Sam Armstrong, listening to all of that. I mean, it's just, the whole thing is just so horrific and repulsive. But particularly, let's talk about the London issue.
Yeah, look, we saw grooming gangs in 50 cities and towns and cities, from Plymouth in southwest to Newcastle in the northeast, Carlisle in the northwest to Ramsgate down the southeast, from Aylesbury to Yeovil, the spectrum of the alphabet, four corners of this country, towns as small as Wendover, I've never heard of it, in Buckinghamshire. And we're asked to believe that in a city of 9 million people, the capital of our country, the only police force that Sadiq Khan happens to run, that mysteriously, magically, that this national phenomenon that happened everywhere else didn't happen. No, I would joke and say pull the other one, but no, actually, there will be victims of grooming gangs within the capital who are not getting the support they need, that aren't getting the justice they deserve, that are being failed again, once again, by the structures of the state. They deserve justice, they deserve answers.
Absolutely.
Sadiq Khan needs to get out of the way and let the police do their jobs.
Really, and again, he's Police and Crime Commissioner, so that is a problem, as well as being the London Mayor. Thank you very much for that. I just love Maggie Oliver. She just says it like it is. It's simple as that. Up next, we're going to be talking about the most delusional woman in the world. Can you guess who that is? That's up next. This is Talk.
It's true.
She's not a left-wing choice. She wasn't, from any of the left factions in the party. Lucy Powell, for those of us who remember the Corbyn days, was a real thorn in the side for Jeremy Corbyn. She hears the dissatisfaction in the base, and she hears what members are saying, and she wants to try and represent that as a deputy leader. I would think there's more about personal ambition in it for her than there is actually about trying to do the right thing or the moral thing or represent the members.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, just on the subject of the grooming gangs, a bit of breaking news. This time it's involving a Romanian grooming gang, apparently led by a winking, smirking pimp. They've been jailed for raping and sexually abusing 10 women across Dundee. 4 men, 1 woman plied their victims, aged between 16 and 30, with drugs. This is over a period between 2021 2022, and they've been jailed for a variety of years, from 8 years up to 24 years, but they basically exploited vulnerable young women. Delightful, eh? More of that every single day, isn't there? More of those stories. Right now, let's talk about, well, basically the most deluded woman in the world. I am, of course, talking about Kamala Harris. She's the woman who was, for no good reason at all, other than the fact that apparently she just ticked a couple of boxes. Let's face it, Joe Biden was pretty open about that, made Vice President of the United States and his VP candidate all those years back. And then she suddenly got propelled because they couldn't think of anyone else quickly enough when Joe Biden was obviously incapacitated by his illnesses and his age. She lost the election to Donald Trump. Doesn't seem like she's gone down very well. And she still thinks she's got a chance of entering the White House. So let's talk about this with Matthew Bryzer. He's a former White House official. He worked in the Obama administration. Matthew, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Julia. Really
well, she's on her little book tour. Sadly, not coming on my show. You think she'd be keen to go to all callers, wouldn't she? But she did an interview with Laura Kunzberg on the BBC, and goodness me, Laura Kunzberg did her best to be quite nice to her. But Kamala Harris wasn't having any of it, and was really quite tetchy, and quite frankly, as she often looks, quite annoyed at being asked any questions. But she told the BBC she may run again, that she would possibly be president one day. Confident there'll be a woman in the White House in the future. Well, of course there will be. But it ain't going to be her. Why does she think for a nanosecond that the American people are going to elect her as president?
Right. So to be a little bit fair to her, having watched those excerpts of the interview, yeah, you were fair to her, right? And I, by the way, agree with you. But what Laura was asking was a general question about, what is are you giving up essentially forever on politics? Yeah. And no one with an ego big enough ever to run for U.S. president when they're that young, relatively young, wants to write themselves off forever unless they really have no political ambitions. Yep. And so the first question was, will there ever be a woman in the White House? She's, of course there will be. And have you quit politics essentially forever? She said, well, no, maybe I'll just still stay in. Yeah. But I do agree that she, in my mind at least, proved completely unfit for the job because of her ego, largely. All politicians have big egos, but the way she can't handle pressing questions. Laura asked her, you're not ahead in the polls, what do you think? And she bristled at that. She couldn't take that fair question.
I mean, exactly. She shows a level of irritation at being like, we have a Prime Minister who does this quite a lot as well. It doesn't go down very well with voters. Her book, her memoirs are called 107 Days. And basically she's saying, I take full responsibility for the campaign. I was ahead of it. But basically the subtext is, if I'd had longer, I would have done better. But the reality is she was above in the polls when she was actually nominated, and she went down because the more people saw of her, the more they didn't like her, and the more she couldn't make any sense whatsoever in any interview, that she couldn't do anything that wasn't a set piece and didn't have a speech in front of her, and she basically didn't have a clue what her policies were, and basically was useless. I mean, she's genuinely utterly awful and useless. And an awful lot of people who would never have had time of day for Donald Trump said that they would vote for her because of that. But is it really the case that if Joe Biden stepped down, say, a year earlier, or said, I'm not going to run again, and she had been chosen, she could have won it? Or is the reality, if he hadn't stepped down so late in the day, they'd have found someone else? Oh, you're frozen. Hello, Matthew. Have we got...
Well,
oh, there, we got you back. We got you back.
Oh, no, I'm back.
Okay, carry on.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, as you were saying, you know, there's a sense of victimhood in her. The whole title of the book, 107 Days, is that I only had 107 days. And as you said, in the beginning, she was really popular. I mean, you'd expect any late entrants initially because it's such a fresh phenomenon that they would be more popular. But she wouldn't do any interviews. I think she did one set interview during the campaign. Yeah. And the more she spoke, the more her voice and her word salad way of speaking grated on people. Now, she said something unbelievable in her book. That she said, look, it was reckless for us not to go to Joe Biden and Joe Biden say he needs to step out because he's incapacitated. She said, had I done that, it would have been such an egotistical thing to do. It would be inappropriate. But A, you want to be the national leader. Put ego aside. B, why would she assume she would be the winner of the election when it came up, even if she was the stand-in president? What there needed to be was a primary. No matter when Biden stepped aside.
Yeah, and bearing in mind, of course, that she did lose. She got only 6% of support in the primary when she stood, and she probably wouldn't have got it that time around as well. Matthew Bryce, thank you for that. Former White House official, Sam Armstrong. I mean, totally and utterly delusional, utterly unfit for public office. I mean, she really was just... I mean, the idea that, I'm the first woman candidate, you vote for me because I'm a woman. How frankly, how insulting to women.
Yeah, it was a case of see what you could have won.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way that woman could ever be president if she had a complete and utter personality transplant. I mean, honestly...
And found a policy.
I mean, what is her greatest achievement? What has she achieved in her entire career? She's been in politics 20, 30 years. What's she done? Go on, tell me. If anyone can tell me...
But also, this idea that she was being introduced to the public. You were vice president for 4 years. 4 years. They kept you under wraps because you were so rubbish.
And all her staff had quit while she was vice president.
She dedicated the book to her staff. In fact, she went through 95%
Makes
staff
Meghan
churn.
look like boss of the year.
Yes, exactly. Thank you very much indeed for that, Sam. Great to have you on a Monday. Always great to have you here. Delighted to say Ian Collins is here right now. Hello, you.
Yeah, hello. We're following this up. Who's your favourite Harris is our first subject.